Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga was such a damn good game. We already had a couple of RPGs in the Mario universe at the time, but hey, you make a new land to explore, you give Luigi a spotlight tied with a unique control scheme, and essentially make it the portable equivalent to the console Paper Marios, and we got something really special. I still love this game, and it holds up incredibly well, and looking back, you know, we got a successful Mario game. Where are the sequels? That's obviously gonna happen. That's obviously gonna happen. E3 2005. This is actually the first time I ever knew there was an annual event where a ton of new games were getting revealed. At the time, I kinda thought that they just happened. This was the year Nintendo unveiled the Revolution. That was enough clickbait to get me interested at the time. And it turns out, yeah, they announced a bunch of stuff that year. And what's that? A new Mario and Luigi game on the DS? This was an entirely new concept for me back then. Game announcements have excited me to no end ever since. And thusly, the game was mine that upcoming Christmas, alongside Mario Party 7, Mario Tennis Power Tour, and Ed, Edd n Eddy, The Misadventures. I am bringing that game up more than I ever thought I would. Mario and Luigi, Partners in Time, the first foray onto the Nintendo DS, and that one game featuring lead speak Hammer Bros for some reason. The baby Mario Bros are a main selling point here. We got time travel now, that's pretty cool. This is surely something that a commercial featuring guys learning to take care of babies could really help get people excited about what's to come. This one is often considered to be the forgotten game in the series. It didn't get a 3DS remake like games 1 and 3 did. It's just not really that talked about in general. And even when you look at the box art, outside of the original game, outside of Japan, this doesn't do the white background with both Mario and Luigi popping out of the logo. This is just good art, which is fine, but it sticks out like a sore thumb. As a result, I wanted to get to the bottom as to why this is the forgotten game in the series. Some people seem to really love it, some people seem to be indifferent to it. What are my thoughts? It's a Mario and Luigi RPG, alright. Man, this title screen is such a nostalgia trip. 2 screens, man, this is so cool. Showing direct footage doesn't really do it justice. They purposefully spaced out their graphics with the screen gap in mind, so it ends up feeling like one big screen instead of 2 separate ones. Yoshi's Island DS did the same thing. I don't know, man, this is one of the coolest things DS games could do in my opinion. Alright, so once again, we're dealing with time travel here. Things can be a little bit fishy, but let's give explaining the story a shot. We start off back in Peach's castle in the past, where baby Bowser is trying to steal baby Peach, and the baby Mario Bros go to stop him. They've really been doing this forever. Before long, the castle gets invaded by an army of alien ships, forcing everybody to flee. Meanwhile, in the modern era, we learn that Professor E. Gadd created a time machine, and Princess Peach, along with a couple of toads, used it to travel back to the past. And would you look at that, it's just about time for the ship to return to the proper time period. Oh, princess, you don't look so good. After dealing with the alien menace, a time portal pops up out of nowhere in the castle's courtyard. The brothers dive on in, purely by choice, bringing them to the past as well, in the middle of another alien invasion. So yeah, the main villains this time are an alien race, the Shroobs. Not as creative as Bean People, I'm gonna be honest, but hey, it gets the job done. Little purple toad-like things, sure, they're more adorable than evil in my opinion. I wanna just give them a good old pat on the head, but hey, we can make this work. Before long, since everybody is now in the same time period, both sets of brothers finally get to meet up for the first time and all board the Koopa Cruiser for safety. Barring the time both Marios were playing golf for some reason. We didn't ask questions back then, that just happened. Well, the escape plan fails to no one's surprise. They crash land into Bowser's castle, and from that point on, it's a quest to figure out just what the heck is going on with these new alien creatures. We gotta put back together the Cobalt Star, the power source for the time machine, and of course, save the princess, all the while seeing just the most adorable interactions between brothers and baby brothers I could ever imagine. Oh, and yeah, Stuffwell. We have a new helper character now, and he's a suitcase, which is kind of cute, and he's just there, honestly. Realistically, this could have just been a slideshow of the interactions between the Mario Bros and the baby Mario Bros, and we would have had a 10 out of 10 on our hands. I know time travel logic says you really shouldn't mess with yourself in a different time period, but I don't care, man, this is totally worth it. One of the main claims to fame for Partners in Time that you will hear from many people's opinions is that the plot is a lot darker than you would expect. Like, early on we see a toad strapped to a tree have its life energy sucked out of it and then it turns into an actual mushroom. What have I gotten myself into here? But if I'm totally honest, on the whole, I don't know, man. It's not a bad story, but I definitely wouldn't say it's all that dark. If anything, it's just more moody than ever. The color palette is a lot more toned down. Same thing goes for the music. And the whole purpose of the shrooms is to simply destroy the Mushroom Kingdom. I get it. But that being said, some of the bosses standing in our way are a caterpillar trying to get a drink of juice and a chubby shroob holding a lollipop. This does not scream dark and foreboding to me. Wacky antics are a major staple of the Mario and Luigi series, and while it may not be as prominent as the last game, there are definitely some moments of kooky goodness to be found here. Look at this. Baby Mario got fat. Overall, the story is still pretty straightforward. However, in this instance, it's almost to this game's detriment. Once you get the ball rolling, not much really happens. That alien threat is constantly looming over your head, and aside from the introduction of their leader, Princess Shroob, the entire point of the adventure is to simply repair the Cobalt Star, whose pieces have been scattered randomly across the land like they're Dragon Balls. Until the near end of the game, that is pretty much the only plot point that is dragging you along. You just kinda deal with some random alien shenanigans along the way. The menace of the Shroobs can be interesting, but the plot itself isn't. The developers definitely seemed more focused on simply wanting you in control of the bros and baby bros rather than tell a compelling story. Whether or not that matters to you is entirely subjective. This is a Mario game after all, you may not care about the story, but I will take anything we could possibly do to prevent baby Peach from crying ever again. It's the worst. On a gameplay front, well, this is certainly a direct sequel to Superstar Saga, alright? You run around, explore, solve some puzzles in the overworld, and you have the tried and true action turn-based combat for the battles. And just based on that alone, the game is still really fun. Alpha Dream figured out a formula that works, and for the most part, the gameplay is still really solid. There are a few big differences though, two of which being pretty small. Ha! Alongside Mario and Green Mario, we have Baby Mario and Baby Green Mario joining the fray, finally putting the spotlight on the young Luigi after Yoshi's Island. You know, at least one person asked for this. And for a bulk of the adventure, you're in control of all four at once. Similar to how the previous game took advantage of the GBA's 2 face buttons, Partners in Time takes advantage of the DS's 4 face buttons. Now, you don't necessarily operate all 4 of them at the same time at all times, rather the babies often act as a boost to things that you otherwise couldn't do, accessing areas that are too high to reach normally, combining powers to deal stronger damage, stuff like that. You also now have access to a new slew of Bros items for your special moves, which replaces the typical special move stat that we had in the last game. I appreciate the change, but it actually makes it really easy to cheese the stronger enemies here. All it takes to use these moves endlessly is to just purchase them, and that's not a hard thing to do, you get plenty of cash. Overall, it's a harder game than Superstar Saga, however, the enemies are still pretty easy to take down if you pile on the items. Also, if you're willing to risk early stage carpal tunnel, that is a possibility as well. Splitting up the group is also a major focus of the exploration, where you switch up which pair of brothers you get to play as at the push of a button. It usually just results in needing to hit a switch as the babies so the older brothers can progress. It really doesn't get that much deeper than that, honestly. It also doesn't take long for this to feel like a pretty forced gimmick. Having the babies around is a cool idea, but aside from doing slightly stronger damage, they don't really add that much to the overall experience. Unless you count the multitude of adorable cutscenes, and I wouldn't really blame you if you did. A lot of the puzzles feel arbitrarily lengthened to take advantage of the baby concept. Things like swinging a hammer and the weird water inflation from the last game, those are still here. Those are things that Mario and Luigi were perfectly capable of pulling off back then, but they are now restricted to the baby's control, taking longer to execute actions that were pretty quick to use before. Also, do you remember in Superstar Saga you would often run into red and green characters that helped you along the journey to really bring home the idea of these two brothers working together, because hey, there's a bunch of red and green characters working together. Well, aside from traveling back to Yoshi's Island, one enemy in the late game, and one battle against both forms of Bowser, they're kinda just there for the ride. It's not necessarily a bad mechanic, it just feels like a time-consuming way for Nintendo to remind us that hey, we're finally working with 4 buttons and 2 screens here. Oh yeah, 2 screens. This I remember being pretty neat back when the game first released. When you split up and move apart, the babies often occupy the top screen while the older bros take the bottom. By doing this, it's possible to coordinate both duos to be in different places in order to progress. It's not really that big of a deal, I know, but it's still a cool use of the DS hardware. It's even cooler during the battles because some enemies also take advantage of the extra screen space, and many of the special moves that you can pull off require you pay attention to the top screen to better time your actions when they happen on the bottom. It was 2005, the DS was not that old, of course we were gonna get a bunch of two-screen stuff shoehorned in by any means necessary, and I do like how it's done here. Oh, and speaking of DS-specific features, you do also get to use the touchscreen. Once. Whoa, Nintendo, you gotta slow down. Unfortunately, while the characters are fun to control, exploration really isn't all that compelling either. There's no big hub world to explore this time around that branches off into the different parts of the adventure. You just have Peach's Castle that will keep popping up time portals that lead to new areas. And as far as those areas are concerned, well, they're not bad, but they often feel super linear, and later on, they start to go on for way too long and nothing interesting happens to keep them fresh. There just aren't that many memorable set pieces here. People seem to remember Gritzy Desert because that theme got remixed in Smash Bros, and Yoshi's Island gets remembered because... Ooh, big boy. This section is definitely the best part of the game in my opinion. We're talking about Mario and time travel here. Not including Yoshi's Island would have been criminal. The fact they didn't overload this level with references to that game is honestly pretty upsetting. At least Paper Mario did it right with a pseudo-return boss fight. Also, you get to explore the insides of a giant Yoshi, and that's just kinda cool. Clearly, Alpha Dream had a really big interest in this. The rest of the areas here are simply a means to an end. They get the job done, but they're overall pretty forgettable. If I bring up the Vin Factory, you may have a blurry image pop up in your head. You might remember what I'm talking about. And if I bring up the Leet Speed Camera Bros from the Vin Factory, then yeah, there's no forgetting that. No matter how many times I try to forget, these two just won't go away. And on top of everything else, there isn't much side content to go for either. There are once again beans to collect and you can exchange them for items. Yeah, that's it. The Fawful cameo is pretty neat and all, you know, I'm glad he didn't die after we blew him up, but this is the only option for something to do when you're not focusing on the story, and you can beat the game just fine without ever messing with it. There are a couple of minigames along the adventure that you have the option to replay, but let's be honest, that doesn't amount to a whole lot. Alright, so I know I got a lot of complaining out of the way, but the reality of the situation is even though the Mario and Luigi format is inherently fun, and the baby gimmick is really interesting, it seems like we got a lot of creative ideas implemented in not so creative ways. But for what it's worth, as you approach the end of the game, things do get a bit more interesting. After a very long trek through Star Hill and the Star Shrine, we make our way to the Shroob Castle, the result of the aliens successfully corrupting Peach's Castle in the past. Now this is pretty cool. We've been exploring Peach's Castle the entire adventure, so for the final dungeon to share the same layout just filled with aliens and darkness, this is the most threatening the Shroobs have felt the entire game. We even get this 4-person minigame to take out some UFOs, and it's not great, I'm not gonna lie. It takes some time to really nail your shots, but it's over before long. Once you're at the top though, it is time for the final confrontation against Princess Shroob. Now the end of this game is ridiculous. First we get a pretty lengthy fight against the princess, which is one of the more difficult ones in the game, and not for the wrong reasons like with Cacletta, which then leads to the formation of the Cobalt Star, which in reality, while we were trying to fix it, Princess Peach has actually been trying to keep it apart because inside resides her older, stronger, and way more wiggly sister, Elder Princess Shroob. And then, when that's done, she powers up into a second phase, where she is wiggly once again. And this is probably one of the more emotional moments from the game. The music is darker and more depressing than anything in series history, and the fight ultimately becomes a battle between two entire races. You can destroy her for sure, but this will result in you essentially condemning an entire alien race to extinction. And all the Elder knows now is revenge. She is a mindless fighting machine. With so much weighing on your shoulders here, can you, in good faith, destroy an entire race at the push of a button? Yeah, of course I can. A bunch of water is sent back through time in an effort to revitalize the ravaged past, the time machine is repaired, and all is well. until a fallen Bowser gets corrupted by the Elder Soul, resulting in one more fight where you can't even attack, you just reflect a bunch of attacks coming at you for a few minutes. Holy cow, they really wanted to pad this game out. We get one final adorable interaction between brothers and babies. They all go back to their respective time period, and that concludes Partners in Time. A good game, for sure, but one that certainly feels undercooked with how the plot and the baby gimmick was woven into the gameplay. And that would wrap up the Capcom flagship Zelda trilogy, 3 adventures built off of the basis of Link's Awakening and a little bit of Link to the Past to show off Hyrule and a few other kingdoms in a totally fresh way this series was not doing up until that point. 3 awesome games, Capcom did a great job, high recommendations all around. And then things got weird. In a shocking turn of events, Nintendo decided to make a direct sequel to The Wind Waker, but rather than do it on a console, it would be the DS that would become the home to Wind Waker 2 and 3 essentially, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks. I can kinda see the rationale behind this, you know, Toon Link and the cel-shaded art style of this iteration of the universe is able to be adapted to the relatively low-powered DS more easily than the more realistic proportions of the lame non-Toon Link. So ditch the sprites and make the character models look decent, slap in a bunch of touchscreen and oh god, microphone gimmicks, I'm gonna vomit, and go about your merry way. Hell, these games even have multiplayer and like no one talks about this. But like I said, we'll get to it later. Kinda similar to the Oracle games, both of these adventures often get lumped together in the same conversation, and while aesthetically there is a good amount that sets each game apart, mechanically and how you progress through the adventures, yeah, both of these games are pretty damn identical. Phantom Hourglass tells a story with the same Link and Tetra from Wind Waker, while Spirit Tracks takes place 100 years later, with a new and shockingly identical looking Link and Zelda. PH Link and Tetra are on another seafaring adventure before an evil ghost ship ambushes them, taking Tetra and causing Link to fall overboard. ST Link is working to become Zelda's official royal engineer, but when you become warned of the suspicious Chancellor Cole and his evil intentions, you get it? Cole, cause it's a train game, haha, he violently reveals his evil scheme by eliminating the Spirit Tracks. Ha! That's the title of the game! And his assistant Burn, kills Zelda. But it's okay, she's not really dead, she's just like, kinda dead. It's actually pretty funny in context, like Zelda really hates being a ghost this time around, and you know what? Can't blame her. Both of these stories give serviceable enough plots as a mean to get you started doing the typical Zelda thing. But again, props for continuing this portable Zelda trend of not relying on Ganon to get your point across. I love this, even though, you know, Chancellor Cole and whatever the hell is at the end of Phantom Hourglass, like, who even cares? I appreciate the attempt. And also, Spirit Tracks has train people in it with like Ace Attorney level punny names. You know, the main one is named Angine, like engine, hahaha. I'm a sucker for this dumb stuff, man. Once you get the initial story out of the way and the game started, I feel like these games are a little more similar to each other than the Oracle games are. Mostly just the visual dressing and the main form of transportation being the primary differences. See, the main thing now with these games is everything is done with the touchscreen, like, god, it's like basically everything. Moving, attacking, utilizing items like drawing a path for the boomerang, and aiming where your arrows go. It's all via touch. And like, listen, I love gimmicky Nintendo nonsense as much as the next guy. Rhythm Heaven for the DS, all touchscreen. You don't see me complaining. Metroid Prime Hunters, that's already pushing it. But here, the problem soon becomes apparent that this control scheme simply makes it more difficult to be as precise as you know you could be if you had actual button input. And that's ignoring the fact that your dumb fat fingers are already blocking part of the screen at all times. Attacking, it can be kind of precise. You tap the enemies you want to go for. Slashing is already kind of a mixed bag, but tapping, I mean, that works. But moving and trying to not jump off of a ledge by accident, yeah, not so much. Heaven forbid you try to push and pull blocks at a decent pace too. Like, god, it's so slow and you gotta tap and hold on the direction you want to go. It's not intuitive at all. Oh god, and in Phantom Hourglass, rolling was done by making tiny circle motions at fast speeds on the edge of the screen. It sucks a whole lot. It became tapping the edge of the screen in Spirit Tracks, thank god, but still, not great. The thing is though, considering games like Metroid Prime Hunters and Kid Icarus Uprising also exist with very similar problems, your mileage is going to vary with any game of this style. The DS brought along with it a lot of gimmicky ideas, some of them worked and some of them didn't, it's just a matter of how open you are to them. But all things considered, there are still really clever uses of these gimmicks. Like at any point, you can pull down the map and write down clues, something I wish every Zelda game had. There's this part where you have to literally blow sand off of a sea chart before you can use it, and that's just cute. Oh, and my god, like one of the coolest parts about this game, there's one part where you have to imprint a label onto another chart, and you do so by closing the DS shut to transfer the location onto the map. It only happens once, but it is so damn cool. Remember when you would close a DS during a Mario game and he would go, bye-bye? God, I miss the DS so much, man. Dungeons will sometimes have these really neat puzzles too, like here in the Temple of Courage, where you have to draw out which part of the invisible floor is actually a walkable path. Microphone gimmicks, on the other hand, when it comes to the DS, typically I hate them. Like, one of the first items in Spirit Tracks is this whirlwind thing, where you not only aim the direction with the touchscreen, but you can only use it by blowing into the microphone for an extended period of time. It sucks. But hey, you know what? The Pole's voice enemy is here, and you can only attack it by first blowing into the microphone to stun it, which is a reference to the original Famicom game, where you could defeat them by talking into the second controller's microphone, because yes, the second controller for the Famicom had a microphone. That's really cool. But then, like, you think you have something good on your hands, and then there's this one part where you have to yell into the microphone to get a discount from a shop, and you actually kind of have to do more than just prank the microphone by blowing into it. Instead, you have to actually say something really loudly into it, and that's less cool. I'm the hero of time. Ultimately though, if you put aside the controls, let's say you're a big fan of them, there are still two big problems that plague both games. I was considering saying the dungeons, but truthfully, they're just kind of fine. They're unremarkable, but they're fine at best. They just don't have much in terms of fun and memorable set pieces. But for what they are, they get the job done. Except for the fact that you do physically carry the big key to the boss door now because you're so tiny and oh, that key is so big. That's adorable. Nah, the real problems are the way you transport from location to location and the required temple that you return to in between every dungeon. In Phantom Hourglass, you got the boat, and in Spirit Tracks, the train. Now in Wind Waker, I love exploring because I'm always in control and it is so satisfying saying, well, let's see what's this way, and just going there. Here though, you forego any control. You draw out the path that you want to go with the boat and you stick to pre-assigned paths with the train. You click go and you just go. You do have choice in what direction you go, but it's still weird that you're just letting the thing go and you just kind of let it happen. It's a damn good thing. The theme song for the train overworld is as incredible as it is in Spirit Tracks because man, this is such a pace killer, it's crazy. So much of these two games are spent just staring at the screen and tapping the enemies that they throw at you as a means to ensure that you don't fall asleep. They even threw in collectible bunnies into Spirit Tracks to help with that as well, and I gotta be honest, it doesn't really work. It's cute that there's a new side quest here to worry about, but still almost falling asleep. And then the temples. Oh man. The Temple of the Ocean King is one of the worst things in this entire franchise. It's bad enough that you return to this place after every dungeon that's already kind of repetitive. The same thing happens with Spirit Tracks' Tower of Spirits. But in the Ocean King, you have to repeat the floors that you've already completed in order to get to the part that you couldn't progress through last time. It's not like a straight shot to the next floor either. You have to redo the puzzles. Why? But don't worry, a checkpoint does pop up to skip some of the floors. Once. Halfway through the game. Why only once? Oh, and dude, these sections are timed. You get it? 'Cause Phantom Hourglass? Ha, it's the title of the game. And on top of that, it's stealth-based, so you gotta try avoiding detection, else you get chased. And if you get hit by the things that are chasing you, not only do you have to redo the floor that you got hit on, but you also lose time. And however much time it took you to get to that checkpoint is gonna be how much time you start off with when you jump into the checkpoint when you return next time. So if you didn't have enough time left when you jumped into the checkpoint the first time, then you have to redo all the floors anyway to have a better time. This is horrible. Thank God for the Tower of Spirits, man. They removed everything that made the Ocean King one such bullshit. No more time limit, no more needing to redo floors unless you want some extra items. And since Zelda is a spirit now, she has the ability to take over phantoms once you get enough of the Tears of Light. And you can use that for puzzles that are exclusive to this tower, making it a little bit more exciting to return to. This whole thing is actually really cool. When she's taking over a phantom, she's invulnerable. You can use her to get to high places. She can distract other phantoms. For having a Zelda game where you finally get to have Zelda by your side the entire time, they did a damn good job making her cool. Oh, and also Linebeck is here. He's kind of a dirtbag in both games. The one in Spirit Tracks is many generations on, but he's still the same dirtbag as he was in Phantom Hourglass. He's really cool. I like him a lot. He's a dirtbag, but I don't care. he has my vote. But he's no Ralph, damn it. At the end of the day, while Spirit Tracks in my eyes is a vast improvement over Phantom Hourglass, and they are neat novelties if you want to see how a full Zelda adventure translates into a fully gimmicked out DS game, these still end up being pretty low in the franchise as a whole to me. Phantom Hourglass I would say is my least favorite Zelda game outside of Zelda 1 and 2. I love and appreciate a lot of what these games represent, and you can tell the developers really tried utilizing the hardware to the best of their abilities with both of these titles, and there are plenty of bright spots that show that, like these little musical flute segments in Spirit Tracks. They're really charming and they do require the touchscreen and the microphone at the same time. But for me, when it comes to comparing it to all of the other games in this video, these are at the bottom of the Zelda portable ranking list. I know many people love these games still, I do, I know you're out there, but I'm sorry, I'm not that guy. But hey, once again, Linebeck was here. Listen, okay, these games are still good, just relatively speaking compared to the other games we talked about in this video, they're not as good in my humble opinion. The angry mob is still coming, isn't it? Like many others out there, the existence of Princess Peach Showtime for the Nintendo Switch had me feeling a bit nostalgic for Peach's first adventure on the DS, Super Princess Peach. And yeah, you know, I just wanted to play it again. Before, during, and after Showtime's release, I've been slowly making my way through Super Princess Peach, and I've now fully completed it, and you know, I normally save this for brand new modern games, but screw it, special occasion. So, I've been playing Super Princess Peach for the Nintendo DS, and I just want to talk about it. Not like this is an original idea at all, that, you know, there's only 2 Princess Peach games, you know? Surely a lot of people out there are like, oh, there was that one time Peach had a game, but if you actually played it, I don't know. I figured it could be a fun discussion to just realize whether or not this game has, you know, stood up to the test of time, and if it was ever good in the first place. And I'm here to tell you, it's fine. The thing that got me really interested in this game and its general placement in like the general Mario timeline is when it released, a few months before New Super Mario Bros. And like the idea that a 2D Mario game, even though it's not Mario, it's Peach, but a 2D Mario game released in this weird pocket of time in between Mario World and Mario Land 2 and New Super Mario Bros. Is fascinating to me. It's really fascinating because NSMB, you know, that everyone was talking about how that was the main foundation for a lot of Mario games for like the following decade plus, but no, this here has none of that. This is doing its own unique thing with a lot of aesthetics taken from Mario World, Yoshi's Island. It's interesting. That's just an interesting little fun fact of trivia. So on this adventure, Bowser, in his infinite wisdom, decides to change up his entire game plan. Instead of taking Princess Peach captive, he goes ahead and takes over Mario, Luigi, and a bunch of Toads. You know, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's just, you would think they would fight back. That's all they normally do, but no, all we see is a bunch of Koopas went into the castle, and now they're taken. I don't know, this wasn't their day. Bowser also has in his hands the Vibe Scepter, which lets him change the emotions of his troop, as well as all these Toads just losing their mind, not having any idea what emotion they should have in that one very moment, and we can't have that, that's a problem. So now Peach, with her trusty Parasol Parry, go out and do the same thing Mario typically does, but now to save Mario. That's such a plot twist, that's crazy. And then what follows for a few hours is just a pretty run-of-the-mill platformer. Like, I kind of understand why when it comes to Princess Peach Showtime, they didn't do a lot of throwbacks to this game, because ultimately, there's not a whole lot mechanically that sticks out about this that isn't rooted in a bit of a weird decision. On the touchscreen are 4 different emotions: happy, anger, sadness, and I guess bliss. It's like happy 2. There's like 2 happy ones. It's like happy and then happy. You got 2 options. And at the flip of a switch, you can change your emotions whenever you feel like it, as long as this bar in the top screen is full. And yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, like the whole thing with this game and being able to change emotions on the fly the first time you're playing as a female protagonist in this game, and then the commercials for this game back in the day were like, oh, girls are even just as good as boys are in war. Like, it's weird. They very clearly like didn't have a ton of brilliant ideas when it came to pushing this game. They just wanted to make a Peach platformer and then said, how can we make this work? And they made a lot of weird choices, but when you look past that, once again, it's a perfectly fine platformer. If anything, it's a lot more similar to Yoshi's Island than it is a typical Mario game because it's all about exploration. Every level has 3 toads that you can find, there's no time limit, just go and explore to your heart's content, and eventually you make it to the end, and even the end of level thing is very similar to the wheel at the end of Yoshi's Island. There's a lot of Yoshi's Island influence in this. But I will say, as much as it is a weird idea that the whole emotion thing exists in the first place, it is used to a pretty good effect because not only does Peach have the ability to change her emotions, but a lot of the enemies also have different variants where they have different emotions too, and the way you deal with them is different depending on what they're going through in that moment. Like whenever the Goombas are crying, they can move really fast because they just can't control themselves. They gotta go really fast. It's the same thing that Peach does when she's sad. You got angry Koopa Troopas that'll charge at you instead of just walking around all slow. You got angry Boos, and these guys are pretty cool because they start to go after you when you're looking at them, and that stuff, you know, it is pretty cool. It does change your preconceived notions of how every single one of these enemies can be dealt with, and I like that. As weird as the emotion gimmick is, it's played to a pretty decent effect right there. And for Peach's very first ever solo adventure, she's pretty fun to control, like pretty standard stuff. You know, she can jump, you can get the ability to float with the parasol. She has a pretty fun slide that you can pull off. I like that. And yeah, the emotions can be kind of fun to deal with too. There are plenty of platforming moments that really take advantage of the crying stuff where you gotta speed through some platforms and really deal with your reflexes. I like that stuff. When you get angry, you get a whole burst of fire around you and there are some wooden things you can burn, like that's kind of cool. Some platforms way up in the air so you can be gleeful and float up to it. Like it's not just a weird gimmick, you like just mentioning it. Like gameplay wise, it is neat. Like the exploration stuff with the emotions, it does make for a pretty fun time where every level was fun to explore. I'll give it that. It's just there's not a whole lot that's super memorable with this adventure because there are no 2 levels that really feel different. A lot of the game just feels very samey throughout the entire thing. Outside of the zipline segments, like every so often they throw a zipline segment at you where you throw parry up and then you just glide down with the parasol. Like that's kind of cool. Those parts were fun. There's also like a submarine part that pops up every so often. That was kind of cool too. The game needed more stuff like this because otherwise it just feels like a poor man's Yoshi's Island. Like we have Yoshi's Island at home, which is funny because it actually does end up feeling a little more like a brand new Yoshi's Island game than Yoshi's Island DS, which felt kind of derivative. It's interesting. This is just a weird game. But yeah, in general, it is just a pretty fun standard platformer. There's a generic grass world, there's a kind of generic woods world, there's a mansion world, a lava world, a beach world, a snow world. Like we weren't dealing with anything creatively here. It's a bare basic Mario game. Like that's just what this is. And as a result, it ends up being fine for the most part, but there are some decisions here that I'm not a fan of, and it's definitely indicative of the time. Like for one, before every boss fight, there's a touchscreen minigame. These suck. Like listen, I love gimmicky stuff as much as the next guy with my Nintendo games, I really truly do, but there's a time and a place for these things, and picking a boss level and then having to like shoot Peach into the air, and if you screw up, it's all the way back to the bottom, like that's not fun. And then if you go to replay the boss fight, you can skip it anyway, so it's like these really add nothing of value. There's even some microphone components in here too, which, oh boy, as much as I love the DS, that microphone, maybe it's just me, I never liked dealing with this thing. That being said, the boss fights, when you get to them, are actually kind of cool because they handle the different emotions in different ways. Like the first fight being Petey Piranha, he opens his mouth, and hey, you've probably played Mario Sunshine, you know that water makes him fat, so you climb up, you get the waterworks going, he gets fat, and there you go, that's kind of cool. But yeah, Petey Piranha, King Boo is there, the Gooper Blooper from Sunshine, this brand new bird, I think his name was Who, there's like an ice dinosaur in there too. Like the variety is kind of there for the bosses, so I'll give him credit. Similar to New Super Mario Bros., these games brought brand new bosses into the scene, and that's awesome. You know, before the Koopa Kids took over everything, it's cool to see bosses that you didn't know what to deal with when you first saw them, and then you see something like Gooper Blooper in 2D for the first time. That's cool. The boss fights were a definite highlight of this game. There's even a shop, and this is kind of cool too. All the coins that you're gathering throughout the levels you can use as currency in the shop to get new abilities, and mostly just get stuff to fill up your little glossary of music and puzzles for post-game stuff. Like, it's not really all that great, but the fact that it's there is kind of cool. That's a thing that you don't see in Mario games, like, barely ever. Mario Wonder had an in-game shop, but that's how many years after? That's kind of cool that it's here. But that leads to my biggest issue with this game, is that to really beat it, you have to get every single Toad in all of the previous levels. You can't fight Bowser beforehand. That's dumb. That's like Super Mario World, you can't fight Bowser until you get all the dragon coins. That's dumb. That is a dumb, stupid thing, and there's a lot of bloated replayability in here because it's already kind of offensive enough that you have to replay all the levels that you didn't fully complete before. but, this part kind of got me mad, I'm not gonna lie. Once you beat the game and you beat Bowser, then you have a whole new slew of levels that you get to play in all the worlds. That's kind of cool, but they also throw in new collectibles in the existing levels that you already went through, so you have to go through every single level again if you want to 100% this. I did not like that. Just weird decisions. But you know what, at least, spoilers I guess, but the Bowser fight is pretty cool whenever you get there, because it does the same thing that I enjoy with a lot of other boss fights, like in a lot of Nintendo games, that when you have a certain skill set as a player character, I think it's really cool when the final fight uses those same skills. So Bowser changing up his emotions on the fly whenever he wants, it's cool. It makes sense for this game, and I'm a fan of that. But I did, at the very least, enjoy the minigames that you get access to after you buy them from the shop. I did these at the very last moment, like after I did all the levels, this is what I did. And this is kind of cool. There's a Toad jumping game with the microphone where you gotta blow to make Toad jump. You know, that's not great, but it could be worse. There's tapping balloons, and that's fine. But the guiding the Toad through the fire, I like that one. See, I like gimmicky stuff in my Nintendo games. This was just as bare bones basic of a touchscreen game as you can get, and I had a good time. So to answer the initial question, does Super Princess Peach for the DS still hold up? Kinda? Maybe my metric for what makes a really quality platformer is just super low. Like, I love platformers, so the fact that this is a functional one, it looks, you know, cutesy, the music is very charming. You know, it's fine, but it really is like a 2 to 3 hour game that they stretch out for 3 times that length with all that extra backtracking that they make you do to just complete it. Yeah, it's not a huge fan of that, but once again, it's just interesting to go back to a 2D Mario game or a Mario adjacent game that came out before NSMB, because like there are some enemies in here that were from Super Mario World and haven't really been seen since. So it's just interesting that that was the last major Mario game to pull from at the time before NSMB changed everything. So go ahead and let me know down below if you've played Super Princess Peach recently, if you felt the nostalgia wave like I did. If you haven't, and you played the game years ago, let me know what you think as well. And quite frankly, I'm just riding a DS nostalgia high now, so there will probably be more DS discussion videos in the future. Let me know what you're playing in general down below. Super Princess Peach, I will say Showtime is better. So, there's that. I own the complete Cooking Mama series, so let's talk about it. In her time on this planet thus far, Mama has dabbled in 5 different careers, but far and away, the most prominent of them all is, of course, that of a chef. I mean, cooking is her first name after all, it would be weird if that wasn't what she was best at. 2006 was a bit of a different time, and quote-unquote casual gaming didn't really have a mobile gaming landscape to dive into like we'd expect nowadays. The upcoming Nintendo Wii was gonna flourish in that stuff, and the DS had its fair share too. You had brain trainers like Brain Age and Big Brain Academy, there was a dog training simulator with Nintendogs, a cute little cooking sim would fit right in. The original Cooking Mama would even win one of IGN's Best of E3 2006 awards. Ah yes, truly an honor. Not long into popping on that original game, you get the basic gist of what this is all about. You can cook, combine meals, work on individual skills, and what do we have under options here? Oh nice, it looks like you can send a demo of the game to someone else's DS, that's pretty neat. Dude, you gotta check this game out. You get a lineup of meals to create, and once you select one, you perform a sequential set of minigames that mimic the proper steps that you would take to make the item in real life. Slicing cuts of meat, grating fresh ginger, throwing items into a pot and messing with the boiling water at the right times. This is certainly no practical tutorial, but it gets the job done. As a result, well, the reality of the cooking process is it's a lot of individual steps that are similar across different meals, so things get repetitive and boring pretty quickly in the video game adaptation of that. Frying up some onion and garlic is cool and all, but if you don't hear the sizzle, see a bit of smoke, and hear someone from the other room comment about how good it smells, it's really hard for this to give off a similar experience, you know? But what about this combine mode? Well, it looks like you can take two existing meals, do the steps to make both of them at the same time, and then you get the combo dinner of your dreams, like curry rice topped with pizza. Mwah. Disgusting. But hey, you can't fault the first game in a series too hard for being lacking a little bit. Regardless, it still sold really well, so maybe the sequel, or the mountain of sequels, is sure to really expand on things. Cooking Mama 2, Dinner with Friends. In this one, you get a lineup of meals to create, and once you select one, you perform a sequential set of mini games that mimic the proper steps you would take to make the item in real life. That's a weird sense of deja vu I just felt. The primary cooking gameplay is still here, and it is more or less the exact same thing as it was before, just with new recipes. My favorite part is by far slapping the pizza dough. Why yes, I do eat my pizza with an overload of boiled eggs. You mean to tell me that you don't? The aesthetics have definitely been improved a little bit, but the big new change is the whole friends part, where instead of Mama being on the top screen, it's someone else. That's it. Okay. Maybe Cooking Mama 3, Shop and Chop, is where things get a little bit spicy. I mean, hey, look how customized Mama is from the last person who owned this game. I can dig it. A few games in, she should treat herself, you know? In this one, you get a lineup of meals to create, and once you select one, yada yada yada, you get it. This one, though, has a tempura recipe. Okay, you're winning me over here, I appreciate it. Mama will also now cheer for you while you're doing things. Okay, yeah, sure, we're definitely making the right moves here, okay. The core gameplay, of course, is still the same, but now there's a shopping mechanic too. You get to walk around a grocery store in order to get all the items off your grocery list, and also help a crying baby after running into its mother, eating free samples so the sample guy will leave you alone, help out an innocent little grandma. Is grocery shopping supposed to be this stressful? I've been doing it wrong all this time. I just tend to get my stuff and get out. If I'm supposed to help some kid with their balloons, I would have stayed to do so, but I didn't know. Now, it's probably because I'm not the target audience for this. Okay, definitely because I'm not the target audience for this. It is the absurdity that I'm witnessing here that I want these games to be more marinated in. The cooking stuff is super simple and it's gonna stay simple, sure, but I haven't been able to make my pizza curry since the first game. I need more stupidity to sink my teeth into to make up for it. Perhaps we just need new hardware. Maybe the jump to the 3DS with Cooking Mama 4 Kitchen Magic is the key. I wonder just how that improved hardware in the glasses-free 3D is gonna make this experience even better. Yeah, so, you know, it's the same exact stuff again, except now it just looks a little better. Cool. And now we got forced motion controls too. Oh, thank goodness, that's what the originals were missing. I will say though, we are embracing the minigame side of things a little bit more now, so I will give the game that makes things a little bit better. If I saw a chef stirring some soup and then the pot flew into the air, you know what, honestly, I would probably tip extra. It's just that the cooking minigames now, they just take far too long. They had a good thing going here with the wackiness, finally embracing that, but most of these cooking steps just overstay their welcome in my opinion. We even got a cleaning game? Oh, also the word magic is clearly subjective here. This is the saddest sandwich I've ever seen in my life. Do not serve me this, I will throw it away. But on the other side of the spectrum, shaved ice on curry. I might actually throw up. Cooking Mama 5, Bon Appetit. Oh boy, Mama is finally 3D in this one. Awesome, I am so surprised. Listen, okay, the first game sold and reviewed well, I get it, and that's fine, but did they really not see any opportunity to change things up here? No matter how many modified steps you throw into this formula, this rapidly became a very uninspired series. This is definitely the best Mama has ever looked, but you can only polish it so much before you realize you're still being fed the same thing over and over again. It starts to grow old really fast. Why flesh out the shopping mechanic from 3 that showed some promise when you can, I don't know, feed fish and toss spools onto a board instead? This is not what cooking is all about. This minigame here where you gotta fulfill ice cream orders in a timely manner, more of that please. That actually makes a little bit of sense. But overall though, yeah, it's the same game. Maybe the strangely unnumbered entry in the series, Cooking Mama's Sweet Shop, this'll be the one? No, of course not. It's the same as Bon Appetit, just with nothing but sweets. And a random store display mechanic. Okay. I mean, to be fair, making desserts is a pretty different skill set than making proper meals, but we also had desserts in the other games. Why stop there, you know? The newest entry in the series, Cooking Mama Potato. It's the same mama you know and love, but now just with dozens of ways you can work with the spuds, and you can even go out on the farms and pick them. Oh, that'll be $40. All right, it is finally time to take the mama fun outside, I guess. It's time to go gardening. And yep, it's somehow the same exact gameplay as before. You get a lineup of plants to plant, and once you select one, you perform a sequential set of minigames that mimic the proper steps you would take to do gardening in real life. I am so tired. In essence, I actually think this is a good idea. You know, Cooking Mama as a concept isn't inherently bad. It's just more of a compelling idea to branch that gameplay out to different formats than just keep doing the cooking thing over and over again. Like in this one, you actually get to tend to an entire garden, and you have to handle different plants at different times. Since the results, you gotta wait a little bit longer for them to show up. That level of freedom and flexibility is really cool, honestly, but God, it still just doesn't work. The controls are far too simple, and the lack of proper explanation for many of the challenges makes things far too annoying, and that is a combustible combination that just ends in frustration. Some of the minigames are fine, garden customization is nice, I like that part, but ultimately, this is just a load of fertilizer. If you were gonna branch out to a new hobby, why wouldn't you go all out with it? It does not make sense. Okay, but maybe the 3DS sequel, Gardening Mama 2 Forest Friends. Same slate of issues, it looks a little better, there's a little bit of extra variety, but it is just as repetitive and shallow as always. I'm a broken record at this point, man. But hey, we got anthropomorphic bunnies in this one. Sick, dude. There's even a cooking minigame in this one. God, they really couldn't help themselves, could they? Okay, maybe Crafting Mama? It's the same thing, just with arts and crafts. Oh my goodness. This is such a wide-ranging hobby, man. It is actually really surprising that they managed to take the entire concept of arts and crafts and make it seem so repetitive. So, good on you, that's really impressive. At least in this one you have the opportunity to show off some of your creations throughout your room, that's nice. Maybe Camping Mama? Maybe this is the one? Oh wait, oh god, this is actually a game? Wow, this is wild. So like, the minigame part is exactly what you would expect, but the way you access them is entirely new. Wow. It is very bold of Mama to leave a kid out in the middle of the woods surrounded by roaming animals and just hope they know how to get back, but hey, who am I to tell someone how to raise their kids, you know? Now don't misunderstand me, this is still a horribly repetitive and soulless adventure, so I can't recommend this in the slightest, but at least they kinda tried. Kinda. What I would say at the end of the day is everyone is entitled to one Mama game. Just one. It doesn't matter what profession you look into, when you put an individual game in a bubble, it is genuinely a fine enough minigame collection. But my god, it is stunning just how little substance this surprisingly huge series has. Are these supposed to be kids games? I mean, they seem too simple for that, honestly. Mobile games have a lot more depth than this nowadays. They even did a Cooking Mama game on mobile, and wouldn't you know it, it's the same exact thing, just with some daily rewards. Maybe that's a better place for a Mama game, I don't know, but it's still not that good. The way I see it, these games should have embraced the absurdity of it all, dial it up to 11, and basically make Mama an action hero to whatever job she decides to take up. That would be fantastic. Considering some of the things she can do in some of the other games, why not? They clearly had the ideas, but they just didn't want to flesh them out. Either that, or these should have acted as an entry-level tutorial for the hobbies in question. Mama could have been an edutainment icon. I mean, some of the games are even under the Cooking Mama World title in Europe. All the pieces are there, and they kept screwing it up. Instead, ultimately, chances are any other way you want to spend your time with a video game will, in fact, be even better than Mama. Thank you, couldn't have said it any better myself. Now that we are 2 games into this series, it is safe to say that Nintendo has something really special on their hands. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga set an awesome precedent for a memorable Mario RPG that you can take on the go. And while Partners in Time often gets saddled with a meh status nowadays, it was still a really solid follow-up and a novel use of the DS's 2 screens. Not the touchscreen though. That part sucked. That one went for a darker tone, which was admirable, but I just don't think they went far enough with it. Oh, and also, totally forgot about this. It uses the DS's Rumble Pack. Raise your hand if you forgot the DS had an official Rumble Pack. Yeah, I think everybody just did. So then, after 2 successes, what's next? There's really nothing all that interesting about the pre-release hype for this 3rd game in the series. Well, outside of Japan at least. Dude, look at that title! 3 exclamation points? Truly exciting times. Things definitely did feel a bit different this time around. The previous titles were fun little adventures that ticked most of, if not all of the boxes required to make an enjoyable portable RPG. But for the 3rd entry in this series, it seemed like it was going to be a whole lot more ambitious. You're not just playing as Mario and Luigi, but Bowser too! Finally, after so many years and only a couple of small instances, the big bad spiky turtle finally has some time to shine as a playable character. And as for those famous brothers that the name of the series is based off of, well, they adventure inside of that big bad spiky turtle. Bro, what? On the surface, this is already one of the most interesting concepts in the entire Mario series, and I know that opinion is shared by many people. While Partners in Time is now considered to be one of the weaker games in the series, Bowser's Inside Story is considered one of, if not the best, and you can tell its quality because 1 generation later, we would get a full-on remaster, and boy, we'll get to that. Nintendo! These openings always fill me with joy. Man, I've always loved this title screen jingle too. Same thing, man, it is just so joy-filled. The music is really catchy, you can mess with the water on the touchscreen, it is awesome stuff. Remember that I said this. The plot this time around is pretty strong. Probably the most notable thing about it is that we actually get a lot of spoken dialogue from both Mario and Luigi. And it is absolutely incredible. But fine, the actual story itself. Uh-oh. Toad got fat, so a mysterious disease, the blorbs, makes any toad it infects super thick. And during a board meeting to discuss how to handle things, Bowser breaks in, fails, of course he does, and Peach can do this apparently. And also introducing your new partner for this adventure, Starlo. You remember Stuffwell from the last game? Yeah, I didn't think so. Basically, Starlo is your new helper now, and she's pretty cool. I mean, hey, Starlo got a spot on the box art. Stuffwell didn't get that, so I think we know which one's better. Naturally, after being jettisoned out of the castle, Bowser is very upset. And in his despair, he stumbles upon a salesman that gives him a special mushroom that gives him the superpower of massive suck.
Really does suck.
Bowser returns to where he initially failed, inhales absolutely everything in the room, and then passes out, beginning one of the weirdest adventures in the entire Mario franchise. So like now Mario and Luigi are inside Bowser for most of this game, and Bowser never knows, he just hears voices coming from inside himself, but he never learned that it was Mario and Luigi, his heated rivals. This story is amazing. Mario and Luigi was already known as a comedy RPG, but nothing gets wackier than this. On your quest to solve the mystery of the blorbs, Bowser is the one who gets to explore the world, while the two brothers, once again, travel inside of Bowser and manipulate all of his insides to make him more powerful, as well as take out any obstacles that I guess realistically could kill him. This bug is just sitting on one of his pipes. I feel like that would be a really bad trip to the hospital. Uh-oh. Now Bowser got fat. Actually, Mario gets fat too, with like a direct airflow into his nose. And Luigi gets fat too with the new special move. I think Alpha Dream had a very common interest with their characters in this game, and I don't really know how to feel about it. One of the best parts about this game is it went all out with the idea of, let's travel inside Bowser and have things that kind of make sense in that context. Like inside Bowser, we get to fight Goombas that are based on cells, while outside, Bowser gets to deal with Goombas that are based on being chubby. We also get this pretty good new antagonist with Midbis. He's like this pig equivalent of Bowser. Pretty cool. We get assistance from a block person who needs help finding his block cats, and by doing so, you get to take on the help of his block dog. And then there's this really creepy block woman who somehow made it into a rated E game. And you even get to travel to Bowser's... Oh no! The storytelling and the pacing of said story is excellently handled, constantly throwing you into new locations, introducing new interesting characters, and those locations you find yourself in are a lot more unique as well. One of the areas, Plaque Beach, is just a sand paradise made out of teeth, and one of the enemies here are Pokies made out of teeth. This is a very stark contrast to the more low-key and sometimes very messed up nature of Partners in Time before it. and it is very appreciated. We even get introduced to 3 of Bowser's minions with actual names and titles. There's Sergeant Guy, Corporal Paraplunk, and Private Goomp, featuring way more unique characteristics than Paper Mario has been willing to dish out lately. They're not major players in the story by any means, but we now have brand new characters to associate with this specific subseries. I think that's really cool. But easily, the best part of the entire plot is, of course, the return of Fawful as the main antagonist. He was already a fan favorite in Superstar Saga for his mannerisms, and he did have a cameo in Partners in Time, which was pretty cool, but being the main villain now, that just makes perfect sense. But the really shocking thing is having actual continuity in a Mario game. This rarely ever happens. Usually every game in this franchise is a unique tale, for better or for worse, and having a returning character show up for more than simply being fan service is awesome. And his motives are revenge, and thanks to the Toads now being all fattened up and also brainwashing the majority of Bowser's minions, his ultimate goal is to harness the power of the Dark Star and take over the kingdom. He's still inherently a pretty funny character, putting that big dumb grin on everything he now owns, but his more nefarious side also feels really fleshed out here, making for just an overall awesome bad guy. And actually, when looking back at Superstar Saga 3DS's mediocre Bowser's Minions mode, the story within actually introduced new lore that showed that Fawful was planning to betray Cackletta and become the ultimate bad guy all along. Some of those Fawful robots you find at the tail end of Bowser's Inside Story, he already had those in development back in Superstar Saga. It is the only part of that mode that isn't total garbage. And boy, are we ever gonna touch on this topic later. The story evokes that same adventurous vibe that Superstar Saga had. We have new locations, new characters, a compelling villain, plenty of comedic moments. It's all there with the added element of
Bowser really does suck.
God, I really am gonna miss that man. Rather than trying to be an upgrade to the playstyle that the previous 2 games had, Bowser's Inside Story strives to follow the same vibe while also making things feel very different. Like for Mario and Luigi, their segments play out as side-scrollers. That same level of exploration is still there, occasionally throwing in some platforming, as well as running into plenty of battles featuring the same tried-and-true battle system that we're used to. But the main difference is in the perspective, as well as the aesthetics, really making this feel totally unique. There's a bunch of minigames that pop up from time to time as well as ways to improve Bowser's abilities, and none of them feel forced or out of place. Some of them use the touchscreen, and they are a much better use than the one scenario where you used it in Partners in Time. They are perfectly, for lack of a better word, digestible. And there's also a sweet music track that plays alongside them. I love them so much. It ramps up as you get near the end of the minigame, and it's so good. And not only that, but they're also a great use of the 2-screen setup as well. Actions from the brothers on the bottom screen affect Bowser in the top screen. It is so much more of a natural use of this style than, again, what Partners in Time did. That extra space does come into play with the battles once again, but it is a whole lot less common. And as for the battles themselves, well, there really isn't anything going on here that's different than before. Jumping, swinging your hammer, using special moves, leveling up, and allocating points to specific attributes, it's all here and it's all enjoyable. The special moves are handled differently though, in my opinion, the best way the series has done them yet. Sorta similar to getting them through the story as extensions to your natural abilities, you unlock these moves by finding attack pieces spread throughout the areas that you explore. In essence, it is kinda the same thing, but I do think the method of getting these pieces is a bit weird. Sometimes you get multiple pieces from a single block, sometimes you get all of them in one go, and at that point, I don't know, you may as well just find the move in one box and call it a day. But regardless, they are back to being performed with special points instead of an item inventory like in Partners in Time, so that immediately makes this way better, and you can all rest easy. Any chance of getting early stage carpal tunnel is no longer a concern. Throwing fireballs is nowhere near as painful, and my wrists are very thankful. And need I remind you once more, Luigi gets fat, but then we have the star of the show, Bowser. Now this is where you get to explore all of the nooks and crannies of the Mushroom Kingdom in a totally different way. You can throw heavy punches, breathe fire, roll into a spiky ball of doom and move about your leisure, even climbing walls. It's awesome. It may be slower, but he is a very satisfying character to play as. And it's the same thing for when you're battling as him. These play out basically the same, but there are very different ways to approach attacking and defending. Those punches you can pull off, oh, they feel so damn powerful, dude. It's awesome. This battle system is great. You even have the option to inhale your enemies during these. Sometimes it simply affects the tide of battle, but sometimes you bring an enemy inside of Bowser for the bros to take down, which is such a smart use of an absolutely insane idea. And as for the special moves for Bowser, these utilize groups of minions that you free from their cages throughout the adventure. I'm not really sure why you get a special move from only hitting one of these boxes here and multiple inside of Bowser, but here we are. And all of these moves actually use the touchscreen, and I don't know about you, but I do love me some sporadic touch controls in my DS games, even if it's an RPG where no one asked for it. These moves are very satisfying to pull off. They deal a lot of damage too, so it's really a win-win all around. Look at this big old clump of Goombas. I don't know, man, I just think that's pretty funny. I want my own clump of Goombas. This combination of the slower, more powerful style of Bowser perfectly contrasts the slightly quicker, more acrobatic style of Mario and Luigi. And near the end of the adventure, you do actually get to explore the Mushroom Kingdom as the bros proper, which lets you get into a bunch of secrets that you've stumbled across along the way that you couldn't access with Bowser. So really, all of the bases are covered here. This would also be the first time in the series we get introduced to a special battle gimmick. A few times throughout the story, Bowser gets really big. Alpha Dream really couldn't handle themselves, and I for one am uncomfortable. You turn your DS sideways, and now we get to take part in a massive gimmick battle. And these are just alright, in my opinion. All of the options you have available to you are so easy to pull off, and none of it really requires any strategy. It's definitely cool visually, and when it comes to having memorable moments, here we are, Bowser's fighting a building, but gameplay-wise, this offers very little substance. This would, however, start a trend of gimmick battles that the following two games would implement as well, so all things considered, on their first attempt here, it's fine. Nothing all that great, but it's fine. But in some really good news, unlike Partners in Time, we have substantial side quests to go for as well. Minigame score challenges, completing puzzles, boss gauntlets that lead to a hidden boss fight, beans. Again, there's even an entirely optional boss fight with some shroobs. It turns out that some of them were actually frozen in Bowser's castle after the events of the last game. Dude, I still can't believe the continuity this game is sticking to. That's so cool. I went and fought them before doing the final boss, so they were a total cakewalk, so that battle didn't really last more than like 20 seconds or so, but still, it's pretty cool. All of these things combined, this is just all awesome. Partners in Time felt like a stripped down adventure with nothing else to really distract yourself with. But Bowser's Inside Story is not only way more fleshed out, but there is a ton of side stuff to do as well. Ultimately, this is why Bowser's Inside Story is so good and Partners in Time kinda falls flat. They both have very interesting concepts, but while Partners in Time never really reaches its full potential, Bowser's Inside Story takes an absolutely ridiculous idea and goes far beyond anything you could possibly anticipate with you going through the insides of Bowser. What are we doing here? I'm sorry, I just can't believe someone at Nintendo was like, we should put Mario and Luigi inside of Bowser, and then it became one of the best RPGs in the franchise. I can't believe that's reality. I gotta give a special mention to the game's overall presentation because man, the art style and the soundtrack are so damn good. This might come off as hyperbole, but in my opinion, this is one of the best looking sprite-based Mario games ever created, and the music is absolutely incredible. Some of Yoko Shimomura's best work by far. And it's not even like the sprite work is simply really good and that's it, but every character in this game is so expressive and full of energy, and the use of the dark outlines makes everything pop out so well, whether you're playing it on a real DS or looking at direct capture footage. It all looks great. This is all I really want when it comes to my Mario RPGs. Personality. Like, easily, this is my favorite interpretation of Bowser ever. I love the more jokey side that we get with games like this and Thousand Year Door, and while sometimes Bowser can be this threatening menace who is Mario's main rival for a reason, sometimes he can also just be a big ol' lovable meatball, and his design here and his mannerisms complement that perfectly. Again, remember I'm saying these things. And now it's time to approach the final moments of the adventure. On Mario and Luigi's quest to create the miracle cure that solves the Blorb crisis, Fawful and Midbis managed to awaken the Dark Star, infecting Bowser in the process. This was all done so the star can absorb Bowser's DNA and replicate his body. And despite the Mario Bros' best efforts, it succeeds. And to make matters even worse, once Dark Fawful is dealt with, because he turns dark and subsequently kinda scary looking, he turns into... oh god, a weird spider thing. Gross. But with their powers combined, Dark Bowser is complete. It does seem kinda cliche to simply have a darker form of Bowser as the final boss. I mean, hell, we already got this in the previous 2 games, but the build up to it all, witnessing the corruption of Fawful, getting to see how threatening the Dark Star can actually be, it is, in my opinion, the best implementation of this idea yet. It all takes place in a corrupted version of Peach's castle as well. Again, an idea that we just saw in the last game, but I think it is handled way better here. Everything has been Fawfulized. Those smiles are all terrifying. And then, yes, of course, we have the final battle against Dark Bowser. You know, it's only like the most defining moment in the entire franchise. Honestly, it's kind of perfect. The location high up in the castle is great. The music is unnaturally fantastic. Like, holy cow, I did not think a game like this would have music this epic, but here we are. Pitting Bowser essentially against himself makes for a really engaging boss fight, and then by inhaling the Dark Star bug from it, Mario and Luigi get involved as well, doing battle with Fawful once again, in his much more twisted spider state. There is so much going on here that is just so damn good, and unlike the difficulty spike that we have with Cackletta, or with how long it takes to deal with Princess Shroob, this battle with Dark Bowser and Dark Fawful, it's handled perfectly. Once you take out Dark Bowser for good, Fawful has one more trick up his sleeve, blowing himself up from within Bowser to bring everyone out with him. Instead, this just gets everybody finally out of Bowser's body for good, and peace has been restored to the lands. For everybody except Bowser, who finally sees that it was Mario and Luigi within him the entire time. And oh, he's not very happy about it, so now he's gotta do what he's gotta do. Mario, Luigi, and Bowser all do one more battle as the credits begin to roll. And it looks like Bowser lost said battle. All is right with the world. But hey, the princess sends over a cake to make up for that, or something. I don't know, the main hero of the game gets brutalized and then that's the happy ending. What a way to go out. Maybe it sounds like I'm exaggerating here, but this game is as close to a perfect Mario RPG that you could possibly get. Bowser's inside story walks that fine line of cartoony humor and serious overtones so damn well, without either of them ever feeling forced. The art style is fantastic, the music is so good, the combat is super satisfying. Maybe some of the later battles go on for a bit too long, but that's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. This is kind of the perfect Mario RPG. I know people tend to give that title to Thousand Year Door, and that's totally fair. Both of these games overwhelmingly succeed in the tone, atmosphere, and all of the mechanics they set out to achieve. They are both, in my opinion, the best that these two series have to offer. With this game, the Mario and Luigi series transcends being that portable equivalent to the console Paper Mario games and becomes a franchise that is worth keeping your eyes on. And then they released a remaster like 10 years later to a resounding... why? Okay, so Superstar Saga getting a 3DS version made total sense in my opinion. People were super nostalgic for it, you couldn't play the game on that console, there were plenty of quality of life changes that needed to be addressed as well, and I mean, yeah, some people aren't all that keen on the art style, but overall, I think it's a great way to experience that game. But you can already play Bowser's Inside Story on a 3DS due to the backwards compatibility. Who was asking for this? I already went over this in the entire video, but that game was already damn near perfect. Partners in Time is the one that needed fixing, but okay, here we are, Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. Great. You know that bad Bowser's Minions side game from that last remaster? Well, we got a sequel to it here. And it's still not good. So that's something. They do throw in some brand new characters that are exclusive to this story, so that's kinda neat, but it is still so unfun that I doubt anybody will ever get the chance to see them for themselves. But fine, what about the main Bowser's Inside Story portion of this package? Well, essentially, it is the same adventure, but I don't really know how else to describe this. The entire game just feels slower. Going through your options in battle takes a little bit longer, loading times to get into the battles takes a little bit longer, the game runs at half the original frame rate. Individually, these things may not seem like that big of a deal, but man, that time definitely adds up. It all just feels so sluggish by comparison. If you play it on its own, it's probably fine, but I played both of these back to back, and the remake is simply not as fun to control. And I would say the frame rate plays a big part in that. Not only did the original run at 60 FPS, but so did the remake of Superstar Saga. I was fine accepting no 3D in that one for the sake of having a smooth frame rate, but here, we have no 3D plus a worse frame rate. Also, while I did say that I liked how Superstar Saga looked on the 3DS, I actually don't share that opinion with Bowser's Inside Story. That game oozed charm from every orifice imaginable, including Bowser's... oh no. But here, I don't know man, it's something about Bowser's design, it just doesn't click with me. I don't think the comedic moments come off as entertaining as they did before when they were initially delivered by a pixelated meatball. But I get it, it's totally subjective. At least now we get to see Toads being fat in 3D, so hey. Also, there's new title screen music and there's no water to mess around with. There is a large list of minor changes made to this version of the game, and some, like having a map on screen at all times, does make a stronger impact than others, but with how good the original still is, I think you're better off playing that version instead. Also, they censored Luigi's striped socks in the artwork, and I, for one, am completely outraged. Hashtag bring back Luigi's socks. Wait a second. Mario's right foot is also slightly larger in the 3DS art. I know it's not a big deal by any stretch of the imagination, but that makes the change all the more confusing. From what I can gather, people seem to share my opinions here. Bowser's Inside Story for the DS was a massive success, one of, if not the, best-selling RPG in the Mario franchise. Bowser's Inside Story plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey for the 3DS is one of the worst-selling games in the entire Mario franchise, right alongside Mario's Tennis on Virtual Boy. My god, that game had Donkey Kong Jr. in it. I don't know how that one didn't sell well. It is crazy to me that essentially the same game breaks two different sales records on completely opposite sides of the spectrum. Regardless of the poor sales, it's not a bad game, but definitely an unnecessary one. It's still good because the original is also still good. Before its release, Alpha Dream stated that they remade Bowser's Inside Story instead of Partners in Time because they wanted to remake the best received title in the series, and they also wanted to further explore the parent-child dynamic of Bowser and Bowser Jr., which we got in Bowser Jr.'s Journey. Boy, would I hate to tell them that is literally one of the plot points of Partners in Time. They also wanted to maintain the dual screen elements of the DS, which is why they opted to make this for the 3DS instead of the Switch. Even though a lot of these things could have probably been implemented down into one screen just fine. Now, I don't know about you, but those reasons, or some could say excuses, seem a bit weird. The sales were bad, the existence of the game simply confused people, the answers the developers gave to the questions just seemed very, very weird. Honestly, that combined with the average reviews that their last original game, Paper Jam, got, which we'll get to in the future, don't worry, it honestly didn't really come as much of a surprise to me that soon after Bowser's Inside Story on 3DS released, Alpha Dream would file for bankruptcy. They made a lot of weird decisions. The original Bowser's Inside Story is still amazing. Let's not end things on a down note here. Play this game. It is incredible, easily my favorite in the series. It may not be as replayable as Superstar Saga since it's longer and there's a lot more stuff going on, but it is definitely a more fulfilling experience. And it makes the idea of getting a sequel on newer hardware sound oh so exciting. You know, Sonic's never really been quite the same since his jump to 2 screens. You want to hear something you've never heard before? Well, check this out. Sonic's adventures on home consoles through the mid to late 2000s were a bit of a mixed bag. Bet you never heard that one before, huh? The Game Boy Advance. While there wasn't much consistency going on with the console games, the GBA was where Sonic fans can rest easy, getting the Advance trilogy to satisfy those classic needs. They may not all be masterpieces, but hey, the team at Dimps walked that fine line of trying to do something new while staying traditional at the same time, so hey, I'll always be a fan of what they pumped out here. And when you wanted something extra and you wanted to dive into some spin-offs, well hey, Battle offered a decent, if not pretty pretty mindless fighting game with a story mode that goes on for way too long. Pinball Party was a pinball game, so it was fine. And Sonic Genesis was allowed to exist. Happy anniversary, Sonic. But eventually it was time to move on. There was a lot of skepticism around the time for the DS. You know, you're retiring the Game Boy name. There's 2 screens on this new console. One of them is a touchscreen. That's really weird. And also, that original model is one of the ugliest things I ever did see. It is a miracle this thing succeeded. But thankfully, when we needed him most, we have good old Sonic to show us the potential of this brand new console with a tech demo. Attendees at E3 2004 were able to destroy the DS's touchscreen in order to see Sonic run in a straight line really fast. It's a miracle this thing took off the way it did. Nintendo DS tech demos are so interesting, man. There are so many of them, and most of them are lost to time, and super compressed internet videos are the only way we get to see what they were all about. The DS would go on to be one of the most successful consoles of all time, and this is how it started. This Sonic demo may be totally lame, but I'll be honest, still kinda cool. But when all is said and done, Sonic has graced the DS console, graced the DS console with a whopping 9 games, of a big variety too. You got the Sonic Rush games, a couple of spin-offs, there's even an RPG. What could possibly go wrong there? Starting things off, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the portable versions of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games and the Olympic Winter Games. Yes, the crossover of our dreams as we know it. Obviously, these are going to be lacking in production value compared to their home console counterparts, but for what they are, they're not that bad. That first game in particular is a great way to harness that original tech demo spirit and just destroy your poor touchscreen back and forth, rest in peace. But hell, I would go as far as to say the winter version is actually pretty good. It's got a story mode, and unnecessary story modes in my minigame collections give me life. And actually, on a similar topic, why not get the other spin-offs out of the way? Sega Superstars Tennis and Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, where Sega does what Nintendo also does. Sega, a lot of Sega in that sentence. Racing is the game I'm more familiar with. I love fan service-based car racers, and this is a damn good one. Yeah, the sequel, Transformed, is a whole lot better, but this original is no slouch either. As for tennis, well, it's okay. It's tennis. But Sega's there. The big selling point for this one is definitely the minigame mode, where that traditional gameplay gets twisted and warped to work with classic Sega franchises like Monkey Ball and Puyo Puyo. Yeah, these may be shameless attempts to do things that Mario has already done and arguably has done better, but I'll be honest, it is simply nice to go back and remember a time where Sega cared about knights. Unlike the Olympics titles though, which gave their own spin on the gameplay of the more prominent console versions, the DS versions of these games are basically the same exact games, just on the DS. So take it easy everyone. For those of you who are in love with the poor 3D models in tennis, I am happy to report that has been maintained here in all of its glory. The minigames are thankfully all here as well, and if you're looking for a worse looking version of this really fun game on the go, well boy howdy, this is the title for you. In my opinion though, it's almost more impressive that you can say the same thing about All Stars Racing. It's a kart racer that often runs at 60 FPS on the DS. I feel like that can't be understated enough because it is oddly unsettling to witness in person how smooth this game runs. My brain is so used to 3D games on the DS running a lot slower than this, but I'll be damned. They got it to work. It plays well, it looks really good, the soundtrack has been compressed, but it still sounds good. I am thoroughly impressed here. These portable versions had no reason to be as polished as they were, but good on these developers here, they really got to show their stuff. We did lose one of the Bonanza Bros in the process though. Next up, Sonic Classic Collection. I'll give you 2 seconds to guess what this one's all about. That's right, a collection of classic Sonic games. Who would have guessed? Nowadays, having an extra way to play Sonic 1 and 2 is certainly not that big of a deal. Why play Sonic 2 when you could play Sonic 2? Or hold on a second, Sonic 2. But you gotta remember, this was the next official way to play the first game on a Nintendo Portable after Sonic Genesis on the GBA. That alone made this collection worth the price of admission. But yeah, it's just the main Genesis classics here on the DS. Not without its problems though, the shrunken down screen is pretty weird on the eyes, the special stages in Sonic 3 damn near made me vomit, and for some reason, rather than speeding up the music for the speed up shoes, it just raises the pitch. But let's be real, you don't get this collection expecting the best way to play these games. For what it is, Sonic Classic Collection ain't bad. Interestingly enough though, this is one of the last times Sega has acknowledged Sonic 3's existence. Quite frankly, in the year 2020, it seems like Sega wants nothing to do with it. And considering the PS3 and 360 collection was also lacking the locked-on Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I gotta tell ya, it's really weird seeing that and Knuckles and Sonic 2 right here on the DS front and center with some entirely new logos too. So major points to Sonic Classic Collection, one of the final times Sega has acknowledged Sonic 3 and Knuckles. But of course, when you think of Sonic on the DS, it's the Sonic Rush trilogy that takes center stage. There was so much going into the first game's favor when it was brand new. At the time, Shadow the Hedgehog was the game console fans had to look forward to, so yeah, seeing the guys who made the advanced game sticking to a side-scroller while taking advantage of the new two-screen setup, oh boy, I'm in. New character too, Blaze the Cat. At a time where Sonic became friends with basically everything that so much gave a glance towards his direction, Blaze is a big standout, being, in my opinion, one of the best friends the franchise has seen yet. She's a princess from another dimension, and she controls fire, and she can do one hell of a spinning kick. What's not to love here? She even comes with her own alternate universe Eggman. These eggs can multiply. That's terrifying. The structure of Sonic Rush is super familiar too. Just go from zone to zone, 2 acts, and a boss in each. Find special stages throughout the levels to get Chaos Emeralds. We got the good old half pipe once again, but this time it's with touch control, so that's kinda cool. This is all a recipe for success. Rush is the literal name of the game here though. Just build up that meter on the side, push a button, and then boom. Fast. It's really no surprise here. This is the next logical step after the speeds that you can reach in the later advanced games. This makes total sense. And clearly the main teams at Sonic Team took notice because it would be a few years after where the boost mechanic would show up in the home console games as well. And when Sonic Rush is good, it is so exhilarating, man. You can pull off a bunch of tricks too just by mashing the buttons when you're in mid-air off of a ramp. Oh, it's pretty good. The game is also notorious for its 2-screen setup too, and it's pretty cool. All of the action takes place across both screens at all times, and swapping back and forth can be kinda satisfying. Playing something that feels like you can only play it on the DS is pretty cool in my opinion. The thing is though, I believe this is an instance of nostalgia playing a weird game with my brain. The mechanics are certainly a lot of fun, but the level designs, yeah, not so much. The further you progress in this game, the more just garbage clutters up the entire experience. Sometimes the game penalizes you for going too fast. When boosting is the main selling point here, yeah, I don't really like this. Altitude limit. Oh my god. This is one of the worst levels I've played in my entire life. Also, maybe it's just me, but a lot of these levels do nothing for me. When I want a quality zone in a Sonic game, I want something that really stands out with a bunch of gimmicks that make that level feel unique. Here, those gimmicks are there, but they're really minor, so a lot of the levels you go through feel like you're speeding by a different wave of colors than the level you were just in. That's it. Just a different visual and maybe one different type of platform. That's about it. Blaze, with her fire abilities, does make the platforming a little bit more bearable, but personally, I also find it pretty annoying that you basically have to play the entire game twice in order to get to the main ending. Except this time the levels are in a slightly different order. There you go. Not that monotonous. Also, she has no special stages. That's kinda odd. I'm already replaying the entire game a second time through. It's weird that the special stages are where the line was drawn. She simply gets her soul emeralds through the story instead. Pretty anticlimactic. Man, the boss fights aren't that good either. A visual treat for sure, always admirable seeing so much 3D in my DS games, but they're so not fun. And they take so long to get through also. Most of them are just waiting games before you can attack them once and then you wait some more. And then the final boss of the solo stories. Oh my goodness. So many of its moves are pretty unpredictable to work around. And then there's this weird mechanic where the more you get hit, the further rings will fly out of you. Listen, I may just not be good at this fight, that's fine. But having the game rub it in by throwing the rings further away every time I get hit, not a good feeling. Thankfully, the true final boss is a little bit better. Super Sonic and Burning Blaze get to attack the main bad guy hand in hand, and it's pretty cool. It kinda reminds me of Sonic Adventure 2, where Shadow would go super out of nowhere. Blaze has her own super form. Pretty cool. Sonic Rush is another style over substance deal. The boost mechanic is cool, the music is great whenever you get to hear it. I do actually enjoy those special stages quite a bit, but as a whole, this adventure leaves a whole lot to be desired. Speaking of adventure, releasing 2 years later we got a direct sequel with Sonic Rush Adventure. There you go. Sonic Adventure 3. On the surface, it definitely feels like more of the same, but in practice, oh man, I like this game a whole lot more. That core gameplay was so enjoyable in the last game, but too many little things detracted from the experience, and Rush Adventure sets out to fix a lot of those things, while introducing a few of its own problems because of course it does. It all ultimately comes down to the level design. I feel like there was a whole lot more care and attention put into making sure you're able to rush through these levels with ease and not have to constantly worry about being dimsed by something you didn't see coming. I don't think I saw any out of nowhere garbage until the very end of the game. We're not pitching a perfect game here, but it's pretty close. Only at the finish line did I see some shenanigans. An extra impressive feat because those stage gimmicks that I mentioned being pretty lackluster before are way more pronounced here. Every stage is home to things that make these locations a whole lot more special. There are just so many unique ways that the game gets you from point A to point B without ever really stopping your speed. That's the important part. Hell, I even think the bosses are better. Not amazing, but I had a much better time with this bunch than the last. The final boss is still pretty whack though, but hey, it's not as whack, so I'll take that as a positive. We do have another one of those friend things though with Marine the Raccoon, who's not terrible, but man, she is there and gone in nearly the blink of an eye and nothing of value was really lost. Kinda weird, we've never seen her again. I just hope she's okay. But of course, we can't have too much of a good thing here. There is a whole lot of fluff added to fill out the gameplay time. It is pretty shameless, honestly. Rather than simply going from one level to another like we just did in the game before it, now the story revolves around traveling to a whole bunch of different islands, many of them being home to the different stages. And to get there, what, you thought you would just warp onto it? No, of course not. It's time to pull out the boats. On your travels, you get access to 4 different aquatic vehicles, each one allowing you to travel further from your home base, and each of them giving you a quirky little way to occupy your time when you're on the water on your way to get there. 100% filler nonsense that did not need to be here. The island concept is really nice. It sort of contextualizes all of the areas that you travel to, but getting there, nah man, this ain't it. That being said though, I still didn't hate these. I can admit this has absolutely no place being here whatsoever and I wouldn't miss it if it was gone, but for what they are, they're not bad. The real problem comes from needing materials to craft these machines and their upgrades. You gain a handful of these at the end of each level based on your rank, and you are bound to not have enough to get the job done when a specific request comes through. Like in the special stages, which are all these races with this shark guy. Some call him Johnny. It is damn near required to have the best version of your watercraft in order to win the race, so you know what that means, grinding. In a Sonic game. To make matters worse, you don't even get to choose which machine is the next one in line to get an upgrade. You have to upgrade every ship in order before it cycles around to the one you want. That sucks, man. If you're decent at the main levels and explore all of these extra islands that provide these shorter challenge levels, the time that you'll be spending actually replaying full levels isn't that long, but it shouldn't be here in the first place. The main adventure, when you're just trucking along level to level, getting to see the sights and sounds of all of these different islands with these cute little story cutscenes that pop up from time to time, it's a really good experience. Once the game forces you to slow down and start grinding for materials, man, that's when the cracks in the shield start to form. And all of this extra fluff, it is a miracle they don't require you to go through the game a second time as Blaze like in the first one. She's here. For story purposes, she does in fact show up. And there are a handful of missions where you're required to play as her to get the soul emeralds, but otherwise, she's totally optional. And those missions, by the way, holy cow, there is so many of them. There's like 100 in this game. Oh man, why? Why does this game have this much content? Oh, and speaking of story, you remember the villain, right? Captain Whisker? Who even cares about this thing, man? The one boss fight you have with him, with Johnny, is like so mindless and terrible. It is a joke. And it doesn't even matter. Once you get all the emeralds, it turns out the Eggman brothers are the true final threat. We got Dr. Wily right at the finish line. What a muddled up game Sonic Rush Adventure is. I guess it's all just a matter of how much extra stuff you're willing to put up with. Like I said, the core gameplay is a blast, definitely better than the first game in my opinion. But if you don't like any of this boat stuff, which I wouldn't blame you for not liking it, you're not going to be down with this new adventure. Myself, on the other hand, I do really enjoy all of this. This island aesthetic and the extra gameplay reinforcing said aesthetic really pushes the idea of this being a full-blown adventure rather than simply a level pack. I remember this game also released close to Phantom Hourglass as well, two games that revolve around exploring the waters on a boat via drawing out a path on the touchscreen. So yeah, these two games will forever be correlated in my head. What a 1-2 punch this is. And sadly, Rush Adventure would be the final time Blaze the Cat would have a spotlight. Easily the biggest potential for a major Sonic character since Shadow the Hedgehog, only to, after this, be relegated to just another female character in the Sonic universe. To say huge missed potential would be underselling it, but for what it's worth, her time in that spotlight, pretty strong showing all around. But like I said before, this is a trilogy here. Things aren't over just yet. Wrapping up this hat trick, we have Sonic Colors. Yeah, we may be dropping the Rush name, but look at this. This is Rush 3, come on now. There are some minor differences here. The homing attack is a whole lot more prominent. The boost is back, of course, but only to be received by the Wisp capsules like in the console version. And the trick system is gone. Thank goodness, we can actually hear the music in this one. And since this is Sonic Colors, of course this means all of the other Wisps show up as well. I actually really like the Wisps. In Sonic Colors at least, their inclusion makes a whole lot of sense. Them being constantly reused over time because they couldn't come up with any other power-ups, that doesn't make much sense, but here, perfect. Just like in the Wii version, they complement the levels they're in great. All except the drill though. My god, that drill music is just the worst, isn't it? The DS version is also home to two exclusive Wisps. There is the Burst, which turns you into a fireball that can make these big explosions and perform mid-air jumps in the process, and the Void, turning into a very slow-moving black hole that will suck up anything in its path. They're not really in the game for that long, so their inclusion does feel pretty glazed over, but hey, for historical purposes, kinda neat that there's two Wisps in this version that aren't in the main console version. But other than that, there's really not much to say about this one, outside of it's just a solid adaptation of Sonic Colors on the DS. It goes by super quick too, 2 levels and a boss in each zone, just like the first Rush game. You blink, and then look at that. Game's over. To this game's credit though, there are plenty of optional missions that are extra that you can take part in. And these all feature cameos from other characters. Something definitely missed from the console version, which only exclusively had Sonic and Tails. This is also where we get to meet up with Blaze once again. No gameplay, no real story significance, just a tiny cutscene. Due to the level structure, you can actually argue that this game is way better paced than the Wii game, which infamously had 6 acts per zone, many of them having repeating level elements. This whole short main game with plenty of optional missions concept is definitely the better approach to a Sonic game in my opinion. And you know what? I love these special stages too. Yeah, it's the half pipe once again, but the way it works this time around is it's in 3 laps, counting only one of the 3 colored orbs each lap. You can run into the other orbs, but it could potentially screw over your following laps. It's a pretty cool take on a tried and true special stage. The end of the game is totally different too. That big Eggman color robot is here like in the Wii game, but after getting all of the Chaos Emeralds, rather than simply playing as Supersonic in normal stages, we unlock a totally new final boss, the corrupted Mother Wisp. It's a neat little extra, I guess, to make this version stand out a little bit more, but really, this fight does absolutely nothing. As quickly as this thing shows up, it's defeated, and nothing of value was gained or lost. I guess at this point, Sonic fans were already conditioned to save Supersonic for the final boss, and that's it, but yeah, it's just whatever. But the Mother Wisp does show up in Team Sonic Racing, so I mean, that's something. I think I would still say I prefer the Wii version of Sonic Colors, but for a portable version of a console game, this is a pretty good one. So yeah, so far Sonic's legacy on the DS, pretty solid. A couple of these games are just weaker versions of already existing console games, but whatever, when you're strictly sticking to the DS bubble, this is a really good lineup. And it would really suck if one final game ruined the whole batch. Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. Oh god. Alright, fine. You know, once we start throwing Sonic into scenarios that Mario's already done before, doing an RPG, this was inevitable, right? I mean, hey, BioWare too, that's pretty cool. That is a reputable name, right? Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Knights of the Old Republic, what could possibly go wrong? I am really starting to rethink this whole let's play every Sonic game on DS thing. You know, I do gotta give credit to the developers on this one. The story is presented like an early 2000s Newgrounds animation. That's a really clever way to appeal to the hardcore Sonic fan base. I appreciate that. Oh my god. This music is incredible. Well, the entire game is touch controlled, and every action feels delayed beyond belief. This should be good. I mean, it kinda goes without saying here, but wow, does this ever feel like a prototype that somehow made it to retail? 3D models running along flat images, that's fine, but man, said models are not very good on your eyes if you get a good look at them. The ring audio is very loud, the sound crackles when you get an item after a battle, all of the characters' portraits and cutscenes have an outline, except they forgot to give one to Big. Poor guy. For some reason, you get these super strong healing items within the first 30 minutes of the game, really enforcing the idea that this team had absolutely no idea what they were doing. And I'm also pretty sure Sonic rips a fat one halfway through this ramp. Maybe some of this exploration would be more enjoyable if it wasn't required to use the touchscreen, but when you really think about what you're doing, it's pretty mindless. There is no depth whatsoever to any of these locations. You just keep moving towards a point of interest, and you hope that the action that you take is what leads to progression. And the battle system, oh man, the battles. Truthfully, I don't know how many RPGs do this, but here, you gotta set up like 3 or 4 moves ahead of time for every single character, with absolutely no way to really predict what the opposing side is gonna do. You commit to attacking 4 times in a row, and then whatever happens, happens, man. You could die, you could not, who knows? You gotta hope those special POW moves really do a lot of damage, because you can only do like 1 of these before needing to pop an item and get your points back. And I also hope you're really good at Elite Beat Agents, because you basically play Elite Beat Agents to get some of these moves done. Except the graphics are kinda laggy, so your timing on these is just a rough estimation. Sonic Chronicles is simply not fun. Plain and simple. I know, big surprise. This feels like a bad RPG Maker game gone official, and I do not understand how this happened. It is an RPG, so you think the story would be kind of important, but it's not. There's like this evil Echidna tribe that's trying to use the Master Emerald's power for something, I don't know. The game ends with a cliffhanger and the sequel never happened. Probably for the best. I mean, the new Echidna character, Shade, is pretty well designed. That's the best compliment I got for this game. Outside of the soundtrack, that still is a jam though. Okay, I take that back. The only good thing about this game is the dialogue, where BioWare's patented multiple choice options shine through, and you can make Sonic an absolute jerk. It's amazing. Even in the tutorial where Tails is trying to help you, choose one of the other tabs. Maybe it'll help Amy feel better. I don't want to make her feel better. Since we just defeated a tough opponent, this might be a good time to save your game. Stop reminding me, I'll save when I'm ready. Knuckles is the finest guardian of the Master Emerald ever. Whatever, Amy. Oh man. Oh, Sonic is as cold as he is blue. And just the wildest part about this whole thing is back when this game was new, it was showered by like these really positive reviews. How? I don't know, maybe it's all relative. You know, back in this time, a lot of people weren't thrilled with Sonic games, so having something different by a different studio, maybe that was the saving grace that is totally lost in this current year. I don't know, maybe I'm just the crazy one. Sorry, that sounded foolish. I couldn't possibly be the crazy one. I just talked about 9 Sonic games back to back in roughly 25 minutes or so. I'm the sane one. Handheld Zelda games, a beautiful thing, right? GB, GBC, GBA, DS, 3DS, so many different letters in one number, so many amazing games. But of course, Link isn't the only character in Hyrule to get his own grand, tiny screen adventures. Why? Yeah, so for whatever reason, between the years 2006 to 2009, Nintendo and developer Vanpool decided, fuck it, let's give Tingle a shot. When Toad gets a game, everybody cheers. Diddy Kong gets a kart racer, hooray! Pikachu gets a game, and people get confused, but they usually go, yeah, that makes sense. Tingle, on the other hand, like, man, okay. I would have gone with like, a farming sim tower defense from Aliens game with Malin first, and if you reply by bringing up the Zelda game for CDI, congratulations, you're skilled at beating a dead horse, good job. Sure, why not? Tingle works too, I guess. Now don't get me wrong here, Tingle's a fine enough guy, living his life in eternal bliss, has a big thing for balloons, I respect it. He can go on a massacre when he's called on to do so, you know, I didn't see that coming, but that's kinda cool too. What's not to love, right? Truly one of the guys of all time. Now, we did already cover the main handheld Zelda games last time, but I just couldn't sleep at night until I knew I had Tingle covered as well. Now, I can't tell what's crazier, the fact that Tingle starred in his own video game, Or the fact he got 4 of them. I guess at the time, Tingle did get a new breath of life when Wind Waker dropped, and looking back, everybody hates the Tingle section of that game, but you know, that still happened. There was that whole Tingle tuner mode for the GameCube as well when you connected a GBA to the console, and that was kind of cute, but even though Twilight Princess was the hot new thing in 2006, and that didn't include Tingle, why not give him something to do, you know? You remember that one time when they gave Link a crossbow? Listen, all I'm saying is Nintendo's never been shy about thinking outside the box with this franchise. Also check this out, if you tilt this around a lot, you know, some games have like a holographic cover. This has one too, but it's a bunch of holographic hearts. You probably can't see it on the video, but it's real. That's kinda cool. So in total, we got 2 adventures with radically different playstyles, a smaller Japanese Club Nintendo exclusive, and a Japanese DSiWare exclusive. I got all the Japanese copies right here, though miraculously, the first game did actually get a European release, so we got English readily available. Didn't get an American release though. Clearly America couldn't be trusted, and that's understandable. And thankfully, even though the second game didn't release outside of Japan, it did get a sweet fan translation. And as for that Club Nintendo game, well, that doesn't require any reading ability, so yes, we can all experience the pleasures and the confusing, tingling sensations for the entire Tingle sub-franchise easy peasy. Well, almost. There is that DSiWare game, the Too Much Tingle Pack. It's just a group of toys. Rather than anything substantial, it's kind of weird. There's a coin flipping game, a calculator for both standard equations, and splitting tips between men and women? I got no idea what this is about, honestly. A terrifying Tingle dancer, which makes me feel really weird, though he does look fabulous, I will give him that. There's a tarot card reader, and an alarm clock if you want to wake up to Tingle yelling at you. And who doesn't, honestly? The Tingle resurgence comes to us from Vanpool, a company including employees from a defunct developer, Love Delic. Yep, that's how you pronounce it. And you may have heard of Vanpool before. They worked on the Dylan's Rolling Western trilogy for the 3DS eShop. They assisted HAL Labs in some Kirby games on the Switch, like Forgotten Land and Return of Dreamland Deluxe. There's the Windrunner minigame and We Play Motion, dude, who can forget about that? But the legacy of Love Delic, God, I hate that name, can be felt in a whole lot more places too. Some of those developers would go on to become Punchline, creator of the cult classic PS2 game, Tulip. There's Audio Incorporated, the creator of the DS RPG Contact, another hidden gem, and even Skip Limited, the creators and killers of Chibi Robo. Makes me sad, probably makes you sad, but that's what it is. But it's their time as their original company, I'm not gonna say it, that's really relevant here because, damn it, I finally get to talk about Moon for a second. Just look at this game for like 20 frames, and it's clear where Tingle's roots are stemmed from. Moon, the remix RPG adventure, is a game like no other. An adventure where the quote hero is causing havoc, killing hundreds with reckless abandon, and you play as essentially an NPC in this world, trying to fix all of the damage. It's all about exploring this mysterious land, abiding by all the inhabitants' weird rules no matter how wild they are, and helping them out by any means necessary. You never know what you're gonna expect in a game like this, and it makes for an incredibly unforgettable adventure. It follows no rules whatsoever, and it feels like a fever dream the entire time. Highly recommended, that's awesome. The best part is that it's actually readily available for modern consoles now, which is crazy because this used to be another one of those games that was simply, quote, too weird for America, releasing for the PlayStation 1 in Japan and staying there for well over 20 years. So, fast forward to 2006 and yeah, here we are. In regards to the seminal title in this resurgence, Tingle's Rosy Rupeeland, and not releasing in America, well, it seemed pretty apparent that Americans just didn't care about it, and Nintendo didn't shy away from that either, going so far as to create an online survey to gauge interest promoted in Nintendo Power. Obviously, they thought Europe can handle this back in 2006, but I'm assuming the sales were so poor the person who decided to localize it was never heard from again. You gotta remember, this is a pre-Operation Rainfall world here. Nowadays, like anything weird will release in the States and Europe, like it doesn't matter. If it has a title and a title screen and you can push buttons into it, it'll release, it doesn't matter. But back then, not so much. Us Americans just could not register in our dumb American brains the quirkiness that Japan had to offer. And if this IGN article from the Tokyo Game Show 2005 is anything to go by, we've seen a screenshot, but it's so confusing that we don't know what to make of it yet. Ultimately, it makes sense why America didn't get the game at the time. Nintendo had to save shelf space for Sudoku Gridmaster and Magnetica instead. Clearly, they're more important. But hey, you know that Tingle Tuner mode from Wind Waker? Why not? Let's give that guy his own games. There's not a whole lot when it comes to the specific development history of this Tingle sub-series, but if you really look at the entire timeline of these developers, it's actually kind of crazy. These games didn't just appear out of nowhere in a puff of smoke and we all just accepted it. Though realistically, if that was the backstory, that would actually make sense. Already feeling a little uncomfortable with the Tingle close-up? We're off to a great start. Welcome to the whimsical world of freshly picked Tingle's Rosy Rupeeland. The story begins with a casually dressed Tingle scratching his ass. Exactly what I was hoping for. He's a 35-year-old man trapped in the monotony of everyday life. Ha, relatable, am I right? But today is different. He is quickly guided to a nearby pond and he encounters the enigmatic Uncle Rupee, who persuades Tingle to work with him to reach paradise in Rupeeland. Food, relaxation, women, oh boy, sign me up! You are then gifted the famous green tights and are told to now sacrifice rupees to the pond in order to continue your adventure. Oh, and then you're told how to save the game by this scantily clad fairy in pink named Pinkle through this Tingle tuner-like device because, of course. This is one of those games where you don't really ask questions. From this point forward, it's all about amassing as much money as possible by any means necessary in a pursuit of the divine goal. And as God or Uncle Ruby has intended, it's batshit insane. You see, I made the foolish mistake of thinking, okay, it's an adventure game in the Zelda universe, it probably plays like a Zelda game. No. Yeah, no, that was stupid of me to assume. You do move around the world in a top-down perspective and you can talk to NPCs. That's about where the comparisons end. Very quickly you're given a combat tutorial and like, it's weird. When you touch an enemy, you start brawling in a giant cloud and eventually just hope that they die before you do. Kinda like the frog game on Game Boy, see, it all ties together. You don't really have any direct control with the combat, you just sort of let it happen. You can tap the enemies with a touchscreen to make it go a little bit faster, but it just happens, man. As the fight continues, you will slowly lose money, which is a big deal because not only is that your primary collectible, it's also your health. Lose all your money and you die. Making this the most realistic Zelda game to date. Oh hey, look at that, a shovel! Like Link's Awakening. You see more callbacks. This really is a Zelda game after all. As long as you do a good job maintaining a solid safety chest of cash, however, there is nothing to worry about, because there are many different ways to fill your pockets. Sometimes you may find rupees just out and about the land. There are sometimes some puzzles to solve, of course. You can also gather items that you can cook back at your home to sell to people back in town. I wouldn't trust a single thing this guy cooks, but hey, at least he's getting paid. But ultimately, you gotta spend money to make money. Virtually every interaction with the world's eccentric NPCs comes at a literal cost. For many of them, before they even get close to helping you, you have to pay them first. And the thing is, you won't know the exact price until you make an offer, and lowballing them not only results in a harsh rejection, but for many, they will keep your money anyway? Like, oh no, you screwed up. I'ma still get that though. You can try again. I'm not gonna help you, but yeah, you can give me more money, that's fine. Not every character works this way, but the fact that there is a non-zero amount of people who do is insane. And sometimes it's the other way around. You'll help someone, they offer to pay you, but how much is up to you. And if you ask for too much money too many times, they will pull back on the offer, and that's it. F you, I guess. Eventually you run into this dog and he just decides to stay at your home, and then he has green tights of his own while he's there, and this is Barkle. I love him and I will die for him. You want to get past this guard to visit the town? It'll cost you. You want this weird bald kid to finally give you the map to the level? Be prepared to pay up. You ever consider hiring these beefy YMCA dudes to repair bridges for quicker access to previous areas? Well, losing a substantial sum is in your future.
Boom! Boom, boom, boom!
Okay. Oh, dude, and with the maps, like, okay, so you buy the map, right? And then you can fill it out with landmarks and report back to this map lady in town to get some more rupees. Great. It's an excellent way to get a bunch of cash as soon as you get to a new area. Awesome. But if you have a completely filled up map and then report back, she will then by force buy the entire map back from you and will sell it back to you for more than she just spent. And you go back to being mapless for that area, so good luck remembering where things are. What do you mean? And then like, at the end of the game when you give her back every single map, she dies. Okay. Bye then. It is so bizarre having an adventure with such a loose, figure it out yourself progression system in a Nintendo game. This is very unusual. The only other time I can think of a Nintendo game that does something this weird with the in-world economy is Rusty's Real Deal Baseball for the 3DS, but instead of in-game currency with that one, you were actually haggling with real-world money, which is kind of cool. Sure, the relevance in this comparison is very minimal, but damn it, if I don't talk about Rusty, who will? He just wants to see his kids. While haggling is the main theme throughout the entire game, the most common form of this comes in the form of these bodyguards. Every major area has this bar with 3 guards accessible, of varying sizes and battle styles. Some are willing to jump in if you get into battle first, some will just go guns blazing and get into battles whether you want them to or not. Either way, by having any of them by your side, combat is made much easier. Enemies will go down a lot quicker with less money lost, meaning you will have more money to spend later on. Ah yes, who can forget everybody's favorite hidden gem Nintendo character, Steroido. Or, you know, you could just spend every rupee you have on something that you don't need to worry about yet, like the tower, and like practically soft lock yourself out of progression because you now have nothing to work with and you're just gonna die in one hit. So you have to grind for pennies or for items to cook for things to sell back to town, and you just do that ad nauseum until you get your thousands back. What is this game? Listen, playing this game as they intended is an absolute nightmare. I will not lie, I did many a saving and restarting every time I screwed up because I don't have time for this. Time is money. That should be the moral of the game. As the adventure progresses, you drop more and more rupees into the fountain, the tower will continue to grow, and Grandpa Rupee here gets more suspicious over time. But it's okay, you fly to the new area anyway, and you kinda just wander around until you succeed at whatever the quest for that land is. I like this one in particular, where you work with the skeleton pirate crew, and there's this choir of haze playing behind you. That's a real gem, I like it. While most of the time it is just some little side quests here or there are some honest to goodness dungeons as well. This little bit of classic Zelda and an otherwise wild adventure is a calming return to form, and a reminder that at the end of the day, this is still part of that famous series that we all know and love. What the f is that? Never thought I'd see the day, but I think I finally found a DS game with far too much animation. There's boss fights in this game, didn't see that coming. They are few and far between, but damn it, they continue to be the weirdest things I ever encountered. Sure, on the bottom screen, the Stalfos fight doesn't look too abnormal. It has pretty good animation here. It doesn't have too much animation like the spider thing. This looks pretty nice. But you look at the top screen, yeah, you know, of course, modified Punch-Out arcade sprites. Good. Eventually, if it weren't obvious by now, Papa Rupee is clearly taking advantage of us with every single bit that we throw at him. It turns out this entire time, he was lying to us. I had an inkling something was wrong when he was starting to pick on this oddly realistic meat surrounded by Agent Smiths. Yeah, this was the moment I knew something was fishy. But with the ultimate rupee finally in our possession, it is time to kick his ass. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, he's pissed off now. Oh, this part, okay, get ready. Get ready for the 3D Tingle jump scare. Oh my god, of course, we're on the moon now, and we're about to dethrone God. It's like a classic JRPG. Or a Kirby game. Okay, oh, okay, cool, yeah, a shooter segment. Okay, and I'm using my life points with the rupees, of course, yeah, why not? Oh my gosh. He big. As his final straw, he turns into a giant rupee with a mustache. How evil, but of course, don't worry about it. He is quickly defeated by the overwhelming power of too much money. All of the wealth now gets distributed throughout the land, and that's it. That's how it ends. Unless you do all of the side quests, you fill up Tingle's attic with a bunch of goodies, and you unlock this secret area where you discover that Pinkle is actually a real fairy that's been held captive this entire time, and freeing her will assist you in the final fight. You see, you're wearing pink tights now. That's the more deadly color. Completing the game now will then reward you with the paradise you have been fighting for this entire time. Good for him. A couple creepily detailed sprites later, the credits roll, ending freshly picked Tingle's Rosy Rupeeland. Is it weird that I like this game a whole lot more than the actual Zelda games that were released for this console? I mean, like, one has a choo-choo train and that's kind of cool, but this one has Steroido in it. I mean, that answer's obvious. Before moving on to the sequel, there's a little spin-off I want to talk about too. Tingle's Balloon Fight. It's Balloon Fight. But Tingle's here. Hey. This isn't even like the weirdest balloon fight game. Like, that's the most bizarre part about all this. Did you know there was a full-blown Game Boy sequel called Balloon Kid that actually got a Famicom port called Hello Kitty World? I had no idea the Balloon Fight IP was this flexible. Even more interesting, Tingle's Balloon Fight was a Club Nintendo Japan exclusive. You had to earn the right to play this game. The best part of all this is probably the box art. A haphazardly cut out picture of Tingle hastily taped onto the existing Balloon Fight box art. I love this. Why stop a balloon fight, you know? Tingle Champion, Tingle Land, Tingle Hunt. There is so much potential here that's just squandered. You gave Luigi a whole year, damn it, do the same with Tingle.
Boom, boom, boom.
Ripened, Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love. From freshly picked to ripened, that's a That's a damn good title. I am immediately excited and also terrified. The story begins in a similar fashion. Casual Tingle is just chillin' when he suddenly falls for an ad read about a book that tells the story of a hero that leaves his parents to save a princess. And hold on a second, let me check the time. Look at that! Tingle doesn't have a girlfriend. Sign him up immediately. Clearly, as someone with access to same-day delivery, he gets the book as soon as he clicks the buy button without even using a coupon code. He opens it up, and oh man, he gets sucked into its pages. And thus, the adventure begins. To find a girlfriend, I guess? I don't know. I can't move? Am I doing something wrong here? My D-pad just doesn't work with this. Oh, wait, it's a point and click? Walking from area to area, talking to NPCs, zooming in to investigate items, there is no combat. What? I thought the sequel was gonna play at least somewhat similar to the last game, but no, they went and threw us a total curveball by switching up the entire genre. Good day, I am Pig. Yes. Being a more traditional point-and-click adventure, progression is a lot more straightforward. Tingle, my guy, what is you doing? You're not a badass. There's a more conventional chapter structure now, with each page of this love book taking you to a new location, and each page featuring a few chapters that conclude once you do something. Man, like, it's just something. You gotta do something, and then a text thing will pop up, and then, okay, I'm on the next chapter. It's whatever happens, happens. Sometimes you're fastening bolts onto these pipes. Sometimes you're using a slingshot to hit targets. Sometimes you gotta do whatever you can to reclaim all of the runaway train parts in order to get the train to move. One time, you gotta chat up Corn Boy. Dude, they got Corn Boy in this? And unlike Rosy Rupeeland, where you work with whatever bodyguard you can afford, shout out once again to my boy Steroido, this time you actually have a full party joining you. You got the Scarecrow Boy Kakashi, the Robot High Priestess Bariki, and the Scaredy Cat Lion Warrior Lion. That's his name. And wait a minute. For this quest, you're told to simply follow this yellow brick road. There's this nice witch that helps push you in the right direction. There's an evil witch as the final antagonist. There's a dog. This is a big old Wizard of Oz reference? The Wizard of Oz comparisons are certainly very strange, but honestly, Kakashi, Bariki, and Lion are all pretty strong characters in their own regards. The developers were clearly inspired, but rather than simply trying to squeeze Tingle into this classic story, there was a lot of effort made to make these characters stand out in their own peculiar ways, like Kakashi is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, just happy to be there and provide some assistance. Bariki is more of a passive observer, witnessing all of the insanity that befalls her new party with a very cold demeanor, and slowly watching Lion overcome his fears to utilize his strength is pretty damn charming. And dude, who can forget about the buff squirrel that knocks your lights out? Tell me, just try and tell me that this game isn't better than Phantom Hourglass. I dare you. There's no place like Hyrule. There's no place like Hyrule. Before long, Tingle learns that the only way to get out of this book and go back home is to go to the city and dance with the princess of the world. But it's not just that one princess you're trying to swoon, no. It's any female you come across, you're trying to win them all over, any of them. He doesn't care, he doesn't judge, it's any of them. There are 5 primary ladies that you can win over for the final dance, and you have to maximize your relationship with at least one of them to secure the best ending. All of the other women you can perform your love magic on are either there for progression or just to fill out your little black book with some more hearts. He's just spreading his love as far as he can, man. I respect the ambition. But that is simply what you have to do. How do you do that? Well, it's finally time to win over the girl. Welcome to the love push mode. Throughout your journey, you can acquire a bunch of different presents that all fit into a few different categories, and here in Love Push, it is up to you to try different items to figure out just exactly what the girls like. This is giving me big Persona vibes, that's all I gotta say. And you would think it would take a bit of an understanding of who the character is at their core to know what works and what doesn't, but no. Each item just fits into one of 5 categories and 1 or 2 of 5 descriptors, and it all comes down to what they like, what they dislike, or are indifferent to, and those factors alone carry a lot more weight than the character's actual personalities. Like, that doesn't matter at all, just throw things at them, and if it's a hobby, cool. If they hate hobbies for whatever reason, because who doesn't hate hobbies, just don't give them those things. That's all it boils down to. Reducing a woman's preferences to a bunch of superficial descriptors and then just feeding them a ton of gifts so you can get what you want, and then leaving. Yeah, I can see why this game didn't get localized now. Granted, a lot of the women immediately are scared of you because of your less than model worthy appearance, so, oh man, this is This is just bad on all fronts. The way this game was structured is certainly one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen Nintendo be a part of, but personally, this is so stupid and dumb and over the top, I'm just enjoying the ride. Having a game all about making girls love you with items, like sure, that's weird, but it's Tingle. Look, a minigame all about picking turnips out of the ground, preceded by the Super Mario Bros. 2 character select screen. I'm just here for the absurdity, man. I love this. The rupee haggling and the world-exploring approach of Rosy Rupeeland was certainly a lot of fun, but I think the point-and-click character interaction-based approach of Balloon Trip of Love is actually more fitting of this take on the character, and certainly shows the narrative strengths of the developer, because peak love-to-lick styled games often revolved around having a relatively boring character entering a crazy world, and rather than having you ask any questions, you just roll with the punches and figure things out as you go. Finally, a game where Tingle can pick up dog poop. Yes! You got these behind the back dungeons that you get to go through when you want to grind out some money, ending with this creepy, dancing Majora's Mask style Tingle. You eventually, thanks to the Good Witch, get your iconic balloons, and you can use them to travel through time. Of course, there's a desert that's filled with turn-based battles. It's the only place in the game that does this. Chibi Robo. Oh man, that just makes me so damn happy. Dance, Tingle. Dance. Tingle Goat. Oh my god, it's a Tingle Goat. The overall presentation of this game, it is just fantastic. Since exploration is no longer confined to the top-down format of Rosy Rupeeland, all of the areas here are a lot more dynamic, colorful, and bustling with NPCs. Tingle actually ends up blending in with the absurdity of the rest of the world a lot more than the last adventure. And when you finish a page and move on to the next one, there's this great drawing that illustrates what you just went through, and it's just so charming. This game has such a great style that somehow took Tingle, this cursed thing from the Zelda universe, gave him this relatively adorable redesign, and crafted a world around him that actually makes sense for this character. I can't believe it. For the majority of this game, I was having a great time. The wackiness that ensues and how Tingle reacts, it's awesome. It's awesome. That being said, there is one part of the adventure that really falls flat, and it's the way to get the true ending. Throughout the journey, you interact and get at least one full heart out of the women that you get the option to dance with near the end of the game, like I mentioned earlier. But if you keep pushing through towards the end and never go back in time with the balloons, your dances with them only end up being just okay. What you gotta do now is go on these pretty obscure quests back to the previous pages and do some more trial and error present giveaways in order to get even more hearts with them and make your final dance even more spectacular. To give the game credit, these side quests are pretty elaborate, but you have no guidance on how to start them, so just keep going and figuring things out, or just go on GameFAQs, I don't care. Eventually you'll find your way to the big castle that houses the princess. But oh no, she's sick! Another big elaborate point-and-click quest later, you get access to the Deku Tree's tears, which are able to miraculously cure her of her illness. But it's clear that this sickness was no freak accident, with one of the servants obviously being behind all this. Throughout the journey, there are these few obnoxious blondes that are blocking your path, this pesky rich kid and this pompous prince, the latter of which frames you for crimes in the castle. What a convincing set of disguises. And then you get a classic break out of jail scene, I love it. But the mission is clear, we gotta get back to the princess. Now at this point of the game, I don't know if you had the 3 characters based on the Wizard of Oz sacrificing themselves so Tingle can achieve his ultimate goal on your bingo card, but it happens. It happens to all 3 of them. Okay. I wasn't about to go for full completion here. I wasn't gonna romance every single girl on offer. I don't got that kind of time. Of the 5 options, I went for the train girl that initially barely makes an impact on the story. Listen, the glasses, the extreme hyperfixation over something trivial like trains, ready to go off in extreme detail to anybody that would listen. She's a YouTuber in the making, dare I say, I'm smitten. Azusa, my beloved, stay with me forever and talk about trains. You are the coal that keeps my steam engine running. I'm sorry about that. And with her heart finally mine, it is time for the grand finale dance. That little blonde twerp keeps trying to make a move on my girls, but I won't let that happen. 5 dances later, Tingle can finally get with the princess and go back home. But wait, no. It turns out the princess is fake. The evil witch steals your princess, and now it's time to get her back. For real this time. Oh, I don't know if I like this. I mean, I guess it is a boss fight. You just keep pelting her with pheromone shots over and over and over again until she crumbles. And no, I'm not lying. The game says pheromone shots. I know it's a fan translation, but I would assume that's what they intended. It's pheromone shots. We're Galgun up in here now. And before you know it, the princess is saved. Justice is finally served with the witch and the annoying prince now imprisoned for their crimes, and it is finally time for Tingle to go back home. One final dance with your true love is all it takes to open the portal, but I don't want to leave. I want to stay in this book world with all of these characters that I now love. And I mean, let's be real, Tingle barely makes any appearances in the Zelda games after this. Would he even be missed? Why would I want to go back? Easy choice, you don't even have to ask. I will now stay with these characters. The credits roll featuring a charming Where Are They Now segment for all of the characters, and that ends ripened Tingle's balloon trip of love. Oh, sorry, I'm lying. Barkle then pees on the book that you're in first, and now the game's over. Now with these games surely selling dozens of copies, of course a third game has to be in development. Right? Not much is known about what the future was going to hold with this sub-series, but apparently a horror game was being considered for the next genre, which would have been amazing, and then you could have called it Newly Plucked, Tingle's Spooky House, and it would be based off of Friday the 13th or something, I don't know. Chibi Robo, Captain Rainbow, Dylan's Rolling Western, Tingle. These creative minds behind these franchises have a really bad habit of making these intriguing stories and fascinating worlds, only for the universe to not buy the games and then remind me that no one else cares and I'm not allowed to love things. After contributing a bunch of unique games, as well as helping out with some Kirby titles in recent years, Vanpool has sadly closed its doors on May 31st, 2023. The Tingle series only lasted 2 main games, but if you're interested in experiencing easily the weirdest things Nintendo has ever done, Rosy, Rupeeland, and Balloon Trip of Love are must-plays. And if this truly is the end, Tingle floating off into the sunset with the love of his life, couldn't ask for a better ending than that. This pair of Zelda games is a whole lot better than this pair of Zelda games, and no, I'm not kidding. Oh boy. So last time, we took a look at the Mega Man Zero series found within the Mega Man Zero/ZX Legacy Collection on the Nintendo Switch, courtesy of a review code provided by Capcom. Thank you so much. Whew, boy, that sentence was a mouthful. Today we're jumping ship to newer hardware, the Nintendo DS, with 2 games that I'm actually familiar with because I've owned them ever since they first released. You see, I am a true fan. The Mega Man Zero series was awesome. The high-speed action combined with the high-stakes story led to a fantastic quadrilogy of GBA action games. However, and no spoilers here, that story ends on a pretty conclusive note. You know how people were constantly begging for a Mega Man 11 or a Mega Man X9? Well, we really can't get a 05, otherwise the entire timeline is completely screwed up, even though that hasn't stopped them before. However, Inti Creates, after doing such a good job with Zero, was tasked with continuing on the story while also jumping ship to the Nintendo DS. Mega Man ZX Advent, and that's it. Wow, they really only did 2 games and called it quits. Hell, even Star Force made it to 3. Or 7, if you consider how ridiculous they were with those games. I remember at the time simply wanting Mega Man on DS. While the PSP was getting really good remakes, the continuation of the story with some new gameplay elements were going to be happening on this console instead. I may not be caught up with the story, but I'm sold. On the surface, if you squint your eyes really tightly, this definitely looks like more of the same. And you're not entirely wrong. Rather than taking place as soon as the events of 04 concluded, ZX is actually more of an epilogue story, 100 years in the future. The evil influence of Dr. Whale, or Weil or Vile as so many of you are getting on my case about, is definitely gone, but the Mavericks continue to be an issue. Okay guys, you gotta forgive me, the game is all text and no voice acting, how was I supposed to know how the name is pronounced? So immediately, the stage is set for something really cool. But your heroes are just a bunch of chosen ones that don't really have all that much depth in my opinion. Like, for the first time ever, you have a choice between 2 characters to play as, Vent or Ale. And it's nothing more than whether you want... or... oh man, who to choose? The characters, in my opinion, aren't as strong as they were back in Zero, both the heroes and the villains. Arguably, now that we have a bigger world to explore, it's simply enough seeing people around and not confined to set locations like they were in Zero, but... They do certainly try though. Your main partner, Prairie, is theorized to be Alouette, a little girl Reploid from the Resistance who looked up to CL, and considered her an older sister. I mean, come on, they have the same exact stuffed cat doll, they are the same character, it's just not official. Even though it is technically a theory, it is more interesting than anything else going on here that's set in stone. You are simply a vessel that is capable of becoming a Mega Man, and your goal is stopping this game's bad guy, Serpent, from taking over the world. It's really not much deeper than that. And ZX Advent isn't that different either. The character choice is more distinct, admittedly, since Gray is a Reploid boy suffering amnesia, and Ash is a humanoid government worker. But once their unique opening stages are done with, things end up playing out the same for the most part for both campaigns. So once again, it's whether you want or woohoo! You do eventually run into the heroes from the original ZX as well, which is kinda neat. They're older too, you can tell because their hair is different. Continuity between the two games is certainly appreciated, that was one of Zero's strong points, but this kinda seems like fan service more than anything. They just kinda end up being there. There is still a common thread that ties everything in this new world together. Biometals, mystical artifacts that contain the data of a Reploid or human, and in this instance they allow you to more or less become Mega Man X, Zero, the Four Guardians, and even Axel. Wow, okay, didn't think we would see much of him after the X games.
I'll help you, if you promise not to leave me.
Yeah man, that's certainly the voice I remember. This is actually a neat enough way to include the characters that we're all familiar with without messing up with the timeline. It even leads to some really quality in-game cutscenes with some of that classic Mega Man voice acting. Ah, sick, a Zero reference, much respect. But not only are the good guys here in the form of biometals, but Dr. Weil as well, with Model W. The bad guys want to harness that power and do even more evil things? Go and stop them, that's about it. The story remains pretty basic. There are a few voice blurbs here or there in ZX, but in Advent's case, there's a whole load of honest to goodness, full voice acting. And it is...
Come and cry in my bosom.
Ooh.
I'll give you a taste of my special nectar.
Both games also do that Mega Man X thing that I'm really not too much of a fan of. The villains in these are one-offs that leave very little impact on anything that's going on. They try to pull a plot twist in ZX Advent, but there is such a lack of urgency here between both stories. It's almost surprising that these are the same guys who did Mega Man Zero, a story that really tried to get you invested in the in-game war that was taking place. Serpent shows up, he's a jerk throughout the game, you beat him, he's gone, that's it. Partway into Advent, you meet a trio of professors. Soon after, one of them betrays the others, and I guess I'm supposed to care? His name is Albert. That's the same first name as Dr. Wily. Was I supposed to be surprised? Despite all this, the two shining lights here are Pandora and Prometheus, two servants of Model W. These are the only characters that are thorns in your sides through both games, and by the time Advent comes to a close, there are signs of them desiring to backstab the villain of the week, Albert, but then they just disappear, leaving an opening for a third ZX game to actually tell a decent end to the story, but alas, things just end here. There is a decent story here, for sure, but the moment-to-moment storytelling is pretty average, and certainly not as impactful as the games that preceded it. The story may be but the major appeal with ZX is the gameplay. Wow, the strong point of a Mega Man game is the running and shooting, how absurd. Oh, and the music is fantastic too. ZX immediately begins with a jam. Green grass gradation, it is so good. So Mega Man Zero was all about a series of linear stages that laid out enemies in such a way to get you to play around with the handful of tools at your disposal in an attempt to reach a really satisfying state of flow. ZX, on the other hand, slows things down quite a bit and also introduces an open world. You still accept missions via a save station, but rather than transporting to a location thanks to technology, now you have to walk there, which requires a whole lot of running back and forth. Oh boy, it's not so bad if you know exactly how to get to your destination. AKA, you may as well pull up a map online. It's for the best. The map in Advent is pretty simplistic, so getting from one place to another is pretty straightforward. The original ZX, on the other hand, my god. But when you really get into the thick of things, this is just more of Mega Man Zero, and in a good way. One of the early stages in ZX is a cool throwback to the highway stage in Mega Man X. I like that. You do some running, some shooting, you take down bosses. It's a Mega Man game, alright. But then of course there are the biometals, replacing the modification chips from Zero. It's really cool being able to essentially play as a multitude of characters all at the push of a button, and they do change things up a decent amount when it comes to movement options or how you fire your weapon. AKA, just play as Model H all the time because you can basically fly? It's the best. ZXA also changes things up by making Model A your primary form and not ZX, meaning you have no saber to work with until late into the game. Being able to mainly shoot a gun certainly feels more Mega Man, but I would be lying if I said I didn't prefer the idea of going through the whole game with a sweet sword. It's the only game out of the 6 where you can't primarily do that. In general though, each transformation also changes up the bottom screen a little bit. Pretty nice. This was still at a time where simply having a second screen was a pretty big deal, and if anything, nowadays it allowed Capcom to figure out a way to emulate DS games without needing 2 screens, and letting you use an analog stick to control the touchscreen. With a handful of different screen layouts too, this is actually super nice. Yeah, you remember when Nintendo thought this was a good idea for a layout? You should be ashamed of yourselves. While the biometal system is really cool, Advent goes the extra mile and also allows you to transform into the 8 main bosses. Not gonna lie, it's not that great. At this point, you have over a dozen different choices to transform into, and the level designs really go out of their way to say, hey, these are actually useful, see? We put a hole in the floor for some reason, use the B. I don't know, playing as the bosses is inherently a cool thing for a Mega Man game, but transforming into them here, it just doesn't feel natural. And since none of them are as fluid in their movements as the biometals, they only end up being pulled out because the game reminded you that they exist, at the sacrifice of that flow that these games were previously special for. I get that it's also technically a Metroidvania, so having more options to gather goodies is basically a requirement, but the implementation of such feels forced in my opinion, and I think it would have been better off upgrading the existing biometals instead. For example, Chrono Force can slow down time. Cool. But we also already have a water biometal with Model L. Wouldn't it just make sense to combine the two, give Model L the ability to slow down time, and then just eliminate this huge chunk of a thing? I'm pretty sure also I only transformed into Bifrost once to break up these random blocks, and that was it. This seems so unnecessary. That being said, these really aren't that big of a deal. For the most part, these transformations are optional, so quite frankly, they're harmless. I just think it was a weird move. Some of the budget that went into these guys probably should have went towards upgrading the script instead.
I'm going to go ahead and meet our booty face to face.
Alright, now hardcore ZX and Advent fans, put your pitchforks down. I know I've been doing a lot of nitpicking, but really at the end of the day, these games are fine. The story may not be super compelling in my eyes, but it gets the job done, and the gameplay may not be as solid and a bit all over the place in terms of its ideas, but it's still enjoyable enough from start to finish. These games are fun, and arguably that's all you can ask for. I think the Mega Man Zero games are way better, especially structurally, but I gotta hand it to the devs for giving a Metroidvania Mega Man game a shot. Mega Metroidvania. In terms of the Legacy Collection, Zero was clearly the selling point here, but ZX and Advent's inclusion make perfect sense, not just because they're from the same devs, but because these two games act as epilogues to the previous series stories. They may not be as impactful as the Zero games, but elements from them definitely linger over into these, and it does help if you did play the Zero games before this. There are plenty of goodies packed in this collection too. By connecting ZX with 0, 3, or 4, either with the cartridges on DS or by the menu in the Legacy Collection, you can battle a handful of the bosses from those games. There's also a secret boss fight with Omega. Story-wise, his inclusion makes no sense, but gameplay-wise and from a fan service perspective, you get to fight against a fully powered Zero, and he's really tough, which is awesome. And then you can play as him. It's late game, so by this point you're already used to Model ZX, so you don't really care all that much, but hey, still really cool. Both games also feature side quests aplenty, so if you really want to invest time into this world, take a break from saving it and find a piece of love fruit. Why not? The end of the world can wait. And why not have a few extra mini-games too to sweeten the deal? Most prominent of which being Mega Man A, an 8-bit classic Mega Man styled level with a ZX facelift. It may not seem like a big deal nowadays, but this was before the huge retro revival boom that would start a year or so after this game's release. Having the newest of Mega Man worlds attached to the most classic of Mega Man gameplay styles? I think that's really cool. And this is where the story gets a little bit more interesting. While we may never know if a third ZX game is ever gonna happen, even though it would make sense, the developers took matters into their own hands. Inti Creates is far from an unknown name in the Mega Man universe. I'm assuming Mega Man A was simply a test because soon after, the world would see them be the minds behind a full classic game in Mega Man 9, and a couple of years later, Mega Man 10. They would then go on to create their own character, Gunvolt, and by the time of Zero ZX Legacy Collection's release, this character would amass a series of 5 games, some being based on the classics, and some clearly being influenced by Mega Man Zero. So while we may not know if Capcom will ever continue the Zero or ZX lines themselves, well, at least we have something else that'll give you that fix. I haven't played much of these games yet personally, but the quality is undeniable, and it's just really cool seeing a developer take something they are clearly really good at and doing something successful out on their own. Also, they brought Blaster Master back from the dead, and both of those games are amazing, and they also have Zero in the title, so Inti Creates and the word Zero, match made in heaven. The question is, though, what's next? Certainly a Battle Network Legacy Collection is on the horizon, maybe even a Legends Legacy Collection as well, and then we can have Legends 3 be a thing that'll please everybody, or maybe we can get a Legacy Collection for all the games that got passed over in the previous Legacy Collections. You got the Game Boy games, you got Mega Man X Command Mission, you got Mega Man in Base. No, scrap the whole thing. Alright, so this is where things get just a bit bonkers. Here we have Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis. I guess the Mini Mario toys were popular enough in the last game to just go overboard with them. The story is basically the same. New toys are dropping, DK has absolutely no concept of consumerism and supply and demand, except now, rather than steal toys, he steals the returning Pauline instead. Returning, by the way, with the design we now know her from in Odyssey. And Mario... I don't know, I guess he just didn't feel like it that day to help out, so he decides to utilize the toys and the toys alone to save the day. Friggin' lazy. And what we have now is a gameplay style more akin to Lemmings than an actual platformer. Once activated, the Mini Mario toys move on their own, and it is up to you to place all the pieces in a correct way thanks to the fancy new DS touchscreen to get them all to the goal. There's a bunch of varied level themes, new gimmicks to accompany them, pretty snazzy special plus mode levels that introduce extra minis to consider, a slew of unlockable hard levels. All of this content is exactly what you need to have a great puzzle game on your hands. It does go completely against the idea of the original games that started this series being an evolution of the original arcade game, but in its own bubble, yeah, it's fine. Each of the worlds has a little minigame to play, all of the boss battles are very much touchscreen focused, there's even a full-blown level creator, and being able to share your puzzles around on message boards at the time and whatnot was really cool. Well, I assume at least. Clearly I lack all creative talent. It's all just fine. Scoping out the new landscape and figuring out all of the proper timings and pathways needed in order to get a gold rating on the level can be really satisfying. Clearly, because they went ahead and made the same game like 5 more times. Though this is the only installment where you have a lot more direct control, to be fair. Being able to get the minis to stop on command, changing direction being a very common mechanic, and replacing the building blocks with expandable girders later on, the later games go for a more simplistic route, and personally, I do think that makes for a better game. In comparison, March of the Minis does occasionally feel like more brute forcing the toys to the goal rather than genuinely solving any puzzles. But that is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. It's still fine. But since the following games are so similar, is there any reason to go back to this one, to go back to March of the Minis? No? The 2-screen cutscenes are kind of cool though. A few years later, exclusive to the DSiWare service, we got Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis March again. It's the same game. Like, okay, the level designs are new, the minis have a few more frames of animation now, so that's kind of nice. And like I just implied, you can no longer mess with the toys' direct movements after setting them off, which is better in my opinion, but I mean, they really couldn't be bothered giving this a whole new coat of paint. Even the story is exactly the same, except now it's presented as an animated slideshow. Ooh. Put these two games side by side, you cannot tell the difference. You see, the joke's on you, they're both March of the Minis. Wait, what's this? Guest mode? Oh yeah, you know, for when you have guests over and they want a little sampling of this game but no more. It's a common occurrence, I'm surprised more games don't have that. In actuality, it is just the main game, but lacking the ability to save your progress. So, finally a modern take on the no save mode from Sonic 3, I guess. Who played this? Did you play this? You probably didn't play this. DSiWare was such a weird service, man. I, for one, am astounded that the same service that brought us Mario Clock and Calculator didn't bring us a banger of a Mario puzzle game right here. I am furious. The true smart move is to save all the hits for a real sequel. Here we go, Mini Land Mayhem. New toy drops, Donkey Kong can't get it, steals Pauline in protest. Okay, we get it. So I do want to kind of immediately knock on this game because it is more of the same, but honestly, I actually did really like this one. It all comes down to the refined level design on top of the more refined control scheme of focusing solely on the environment around the minis while they all just move along reacting to your changes. It plays more like Minis March Again, but with level designs that match it a whole lot better. Stages also have an extra collectible coin to focus on. You very quickly have to start managing multiple mini types at once, needing to guide them to their own respective door instead of everyone piling up into a single one. And also, the music for the first world is a remix of the main theme from Super Mario Bros. 2. Oh my god. It is very, very rare, but every time Nintendo remembers that game's existence, it just fills me with joy. Going into detail about this game makes it really, really hard to sell it any more than it just being a really polished puzzle game, and probably the best the formula has seen yet. It's no DK94, but this I still like. The minigames are, once again, pretty neat. There are still a ton of levels to play through. The construction mode returns that we still can no longer utilize. That is still very upsetting. The cutscenes, like last time, aren't great, but for a late era DS game that I'm pretty sure nobody played, and I am not sure why Nintendo made it in the first place, yeah, it's pretty good. The funniest part about the original Raving Rabbids is it's very obvious that the developers behind the DS and Game Boy Advance versions didn't get the memo that we were supposed to be pivoting to a minigame collection. These two games do the unthinkable and actually make a Rabbids game that still treats Rayman with some respect. Goddamn, I'm shooketh. I mean, the stories are nearly identical. Rayman's chillin', the Rabbids take over, and while he only gets imprisoned in the GBA version, the Rabbid takeover remains the same. But instead of seeing how far you can throw a cow for your freedom, you're actually doing some platforming. What Rayman knows best. It's like that original trailer was for these two versions all this time. Back when I made the Rayman retrospective, I played enough of these games to get the basic gist of them, and that was about it. These fun little platformers where you play as Rayman, the Rabbids are the villains, and they were gonna have a platforming adventure with as little of a budget as possible. And upon going back to play some more, yeah, no, I hit the nail on the head. The GBA game uses the engine they created for Rayman 3, which was just an offshoot of Rayman Advance, and the DS game uses a modified engine they used for Rayman DS, which is already a port of the N64 version of Rayman 2. Neither game here is original. Just take it, alright? Just take it and play it and shut up. This is still the video game era of developers going, hey, look at this, our hot new game is releasing on every single console as well as portables, and refuses to ever reveal anything about said handheld versions. These games didn't see the light of day, no press ever saw them, until some random gamer that's the age of 6 popped it into their handheld for the first time ever. These two versions, they're cursed, man. It's like I'm viewing an alternate timeline in real time. I've since played more of each game, and I can confidently put my stamp on these two titles being fine. They're also just fine. There's nothing remarkable about them whatsoever. This really encapsulates Rayman's portable career in general. You remember Rayman 1 and 2 on Game Boy Color? Exactly. Not even the costume mechanics really work in this context. It's just locked mechanics tied to either swapping to them at free will on GBA or context-sensitive platforms on DS. Only the most hardcore of Rayman fans out there should ever dare giving these games a go. You're not missing much otherwise. The most interesting thing to come out of them outside of their mere existence and that these would be the last original Rayman platformers until Origins in 2011 is some of the GBA music shows up in the Playtopia world in the excellent fan game Rayman Redemption. Shout out to Rayman Redemption once again, still the best thing to happen to this franchise in a decade. Alright, whatever, it's another fine enough minigame collection, maybe like the last time the DS version is gonna be nope, minigame collection. Awesome, and boy lucky for you, if you thought there was way too much Rayman in the Wii version, the DS has you covered. He's relegated to just the victory screen this time. This sucks. Yo, somebody check my pulse real quick. I think that's it for me. Thankfully, you'll be happy to know that when it comes to the DS version, Ubisoft went above and beyond to make sure that this time, it's the same. It's the same game. This time we got a stupid, soulless board game to tie things together that's terrible. The minigames work just about as well as they ever could with the touchscreen. I mean, I guess that's fine. And getting anybody to actually play this game with you in real life,
I don't know, that sounds impossible. Like, listen, I know there are families all over the world that love games like this. What a nice, safe purchase for my kids, you know? Little Jimmy's out here asking for Super Mario Galaxy 2 and you go, nah, TV party. But even if we remove the complete obliteration of Rayman as a character in these, they're just bland minigame collections. But hey, the Rabbids scream, so the following release was Rabbids Go Home. Let's start on the DS this time. Not only has raving been taken out of the title, but Rayman as well. Cool, we can finally stop pretending he matters anymore. Go Home released in late 2009, and Rayman Origins was revealed in summer 2011. So us Rayman fans like to call 2010 and early 2011 the dark, sad ages. And hey, you know what? Good on them. This isn't a minigame collection. Rabbids Go Home on DS is one of those incredible machine-like games where you have a few moving pieces and you gotta place other pieces down to complete the puzzle by getting your rabbit in a shopping cart to the end goal while collecting every traffic cone along the way. At this stage of the game, man, this is super refreshing. At first I was more nervous, like, oh god, look at these animations. This screams we had $2 to make this game. But no, even early on, stages take some genuine thought to figure out. The pieces that you have access to are fairly interesting. You can even create your own stages. Always love when a puzzle game does that. I mean, like, it's not amazing, but I'll be damned, this is the best game thus far. They actually took a tried and true puzzle game idea, put a neat twist on it without relying on the Rabbids just yelling their vocal cords out to get their point across, and we even got this brand new lore and art style, with the Rabbids looking to collect as much stuff as possible to build a tower to the moon. Is this a soft reboot of the Rabbids franchise? Things were going like really well up until now. You decided to reboot it anyway? Like, and then we have the 3DS version. Yeah, no longer on the DS, the 3DS. Ooh boy, minigame collection on a new console? No, 2D platformer. What? And it's not good. Functionally, it works. Truly the Bubsy 3D of the Rabbids universe. Say whatever you will about the quality, but damn it, this is a platformer. The attempt at further variety is appreciated, don't get me wrong, but this game fails so hard at where Rabbids Go Home succeeded, changing up the formula and adapting the Rabbids trademark quote-unquote humor to create an adventure that feels fresh. This game didn't do that. This is as derivative as you can get when it comes to a 2D platformer, but hey, Travel in Time did introduce the washing machine into the franchise. Fans of the Mario plus Rabbids games certainly care about the universe's deep timeline, so it's good to know where the origin is, right? When all is said and done, I think I would honestly say that SpongeBob's adventures on the Game Boy Advance were a pleasant surprise, actually. Some of the games were terrible, you know, why bother sugarcoating it, but the movie game, Creature from the Krusty Krab, and hell, even Super Sponge, they weren't the worst things I've ever played, which for portable versions of licensed games, I gotta tell you, my expectations were really, really low. And then the DS happened. What, you thought 7 GBA games were impressive? Oh, that's nothing. SpongeBob managed to grace the DS with a total of 9 games. And now I have to play all of them. Even going beyond the DS, the 3DS had some love too. Remember Squiggle Pants on the Wii with the U-Draw tablet? Well, that was also released on the 3DS, so you pop that cartridge in and you get to experience this decent 30-minute long WarioWare clone without needing that stupid tablet accessory. Cool. Hero Pants released on the 3DS as well. And it's just as terrible as it was on the Vita. Good to see we have all the bases covered here. We are nearly finally done taking a look at all of these SpongeBob games that had the audacity to be released to the public. More or less. Just gotta do this disclaimer one more time. We're not gonna be talking about any of the Nicktoons games that may have SpongeBob as the star hero. We're not gonna be doing that. Maybe in the future, not now. Because even still, we got 9+ games to look at here. How did this happen? I am rapidly approaching the state of advanced darkness here, so why not come on in and join me for the ride? This is the final stop of the SpongeBob video game retrospective. The last one, I promise you. I want off this ride so badly. Taking a look at these games really brings me back to yet another odd era in gaming, a time where Nintendo was pretending like both the GBA and the DS were going to coexist, rather than the reality of the DS being the obvious next step in the handheld gaming timeline. You see, the final GBA game, Atlantis Squarepantis, released in late 2007, and while that title did also release on the DS, it was actually the third Sponge game on the console, the first being the Yellow Avenger releasing 2 years prior in 2005. Well,
we start this journey 1 year into the DS's life cycle. Let's see if SpongeBob made the jump to 2 screens gracefully. Considering that unlike the GBA, there is no SpongeBob-themed console to play these games on, chances are that's a big ol' no. I'll have you know, I played all 9 of these games over the span of 2 weeks, and only cried for about 20 minutes. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy's evil nemesis, the Dirty Bubble, is at it again. He stole Mermaid Man's special belt. Oh, that dastardly villain. Well, just before SpongeBob resorts to violence and attempts to stab the villain to death, that is pretty extreme in all honesty. The bubble gets himself into a washing machine, causing him to split into a ton of bubbles. So now it's up to SpongeBob to, I guess, run around the city and stop a bunch of villains wreaking havoc in Bikini Bottom? Huh? Weird. Okay, so like the opening cutscene almost has no bearing on the entire game, aside from the fact that, hey, there are going to be these tiny little dirty bubbles around the city, so they're a little collectible now. Have at it. And also now SpongeBob is in a bad Mermaid Man cosplay. Have fun. Whatever gets the spongy one to go into a 2-dimensional plane and do some platforming, I guess, right?
1 hour later.
I have no idea what this game is. Alright, so you are regularly working on objectives to help out some residents of Bikini Bottom, but like, it's all just done in the most mundane platforming I've ever experienced. Exploration is clearly the focus here, but it all just feels so aimless. The controls are incredibly slow and floaty, any touchscreen mechanics feel totally shoehorned in that vintage early DS styled way. There's a jellyfish milking minigame? Oh, I don't like this. This is on me, you know, thinking that this was going to be a 2D platformer here, but in reality, it's just a non-stop barrage of busy work that happens to take place in only 2 dimensions. I'm here to go and fight some villains and use superhero moves and whatnot to defeat them, but 30 minutes in, I'm doing food delivery? Is this false advertising? Can I sue? The low poly models are something special though, I like these a whole lot. I don't know, man. I do have the game on the PSP as well, and that console's a bit more powerful, so maybe the game fares better there? No, it's exactly the same. And the worst part? I actually thought it was gonna be kinda different. I'm really losing it, aren't I? Breacher from the Krusty Carb, this time on the DS. Hooray! So, if you remember correctly, while this game has always been a massive fever dream in an interactive form, I thought the console game overstayed its welcome while the WayForward developed GBA game was a surprisingly fine time. And thankfully, WayForward also helmed the DS version. Alright then, time to get my expectations way too high once again. Make SpongeBob walk by swiping over him in the direction you want. Oh, sweet mother of pearl, it's a touchscreen game? Yeah, sure enough, it's Mario vs. Donkey Kong style, Lemming style, that sort of game. You gotta draw over the characters in order to get them to do anything. I can see the designers now. They were thinking to themselves, you know the one thing that holds platformers back? Being able to actually control the characters. We gotta eliminate that part. On top of losing direct control, there are also fetch quest mechanics. This is disgusting. There are some fine enough touchscreen minigames now though, and there's also some animated cutscenes, so that's, you know, that's kind of cool, but man, you know what? I can only pretend to give this game merits for so long. This is bad. Once I got to the part where a jellyfish started invading plankton mid-dream and I had to blow into the microphone to get rid of them, and I also knew to do so because the game features the most generic Arial font I've ever seen. This looks like a fan game from the early 90s. I hit a breaking point, alright. I was done. In the previous SpongeBob video, I did say that WayForward is actually a company that provides mixed results rather than certified bangers. And hey, this is a perfect example of that. Look no further than the GBA and DS versions of the same game, and we have such a drastic difference. What a bizarre timeline we're in. But then, Atlantis Squarepantis for the DS. Now, thanks to all of the suggestions I've gotten these SpongeBob videos over the years, I came to one solid conclusion really early on that the console version, whatever, the GBA version, also, whatever. It's the DS version of Atlantis Squarepantis that's the one to check out, so you guys have an expectation set way high, and that's never done me wrong before. I'm ready. Oh, that's why? Dude, the DS version is a 3D platformer? Oh, wait, on the DS, a 3D what? Oh my god. All right, you know what? This feeling of joy and happiness that I'm currently experiencing, I had almost forgotten what this felt like. I can't believe it was Atlantis Squarepantis on the DS that makes me feel this way. Didn't like the console version, didn't like the GBA version, but this one? this is a good one. So yes, this is a 3D side-scrolling platformer with a partner mechanic, letting you swap between two characters at the push of a button, combine unique abilities when necessary, like SpongeBob being able to inflate on demand. You know, good for him, I guess. And also, it forbids you from progressing too far without making sure your partner is right beside you. That part is a bit annoying, but overall, it's not that bad. And best of all, it's actually kind of enjoyable to control. You gotta keep this in perspective. 3D was hardly the DS's strong suit, so the fact that we got this is really impressive, like genuinely. And then you stand on the back of a boatmobile and you start up an arcade shooter segment? Dude, what is this game? Why is the DS version of this special episode tie-in the only one that felt competently made? The environments are nicely varied, the combat is so nonsensical that I am honestly okay with it. Any touchscreen gimmicks happen very quickly and do not bog down the overall experience. Listen here, okay? In the grand scope of platformers and the mountain of quality titles on the DS, I'm not gonna lie to you and say this is some crazy hidden gem and Mario really needs to watch out for himself, but you know what? I'll be damned. If you're into licensed games at all, especially if you're nostalgic for SpongeBob, this is a good game. By God, it's enjoyable. And the real kicker, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but this is not even my favorite 3D platformer featured in this very video. But hey, like I said, I'm getting way too ahead of myself here, that's a spoiler. You know what, you all steered me in the right direction with this one. Genuinely, Atlantis Squarepantis, pretty good game. Didn't see that coming, so thank you so much for that. This will stay in the collection no matter what. But, what's next? Oh my God, I get to talk about Drawn to Life finally? Oh man, okay, I will keep this brief because this will take over literally the entire episode, but I love the Drawn to Life series. If you've never given these games a shot, well, essentially, Drawn to Life is a series of incredibly simple platformers that let you draw a ton of the in-game assets as you're playing. If you need a platform, for example, well, the game will stop you, you draw whatever you want in this little box, and then boom, I made that. That's my creation, that's mine. As long as you don't go in expecting some sort of platforming masterpiece here, but if you have a baby brain like me and get serotonin by seeing your creations play out in real time, these are good fun. And up until you get to the second game's original ending, it's a charming series overall. No, I don't want to talk about the ending. Clearly these games were popular enough to have a spin-off within the world of Bikini Bottom. Drawn to Life, SpongeBob SquarePants Edition. Doodle Bob is back. That's a big me-hoy me-noy moment right there. And I guess since Sponge and Pat just can't be bothered to deal with him today, leave it to you, the player, the omnipotent god in the world, to save the day. This is my SpongeBob, by the way. This is why I have someone else do my thumbnails. Okay, time to draw my very own hero. Alright, who should be the ultimate Bikini Bottom hero to save the day when our mightiest heroes just don't feel up to it? This is my fanfiction, don't shame me. Did you have SpongeBob being terrified of a poorly drawn Sonic on your bingo card for today? Don't lie to me, of course you did. So yeah, like the rest of the games in this series, this is a pretty unremarkable platformer, but you often run into these drawing segments where you get to draw in-game elements like checkpoints and bubble platforms. When you go back to the hub world, you can draw things like houses and furniture for said houses, and I don't know, considering I'm sticking to this whole Sonic thing, making a bed with a Chaos Emerald blanket, I am enjoying this immensely. Every level also has multiple hidden Chow in them to find, which is crazy since Sonic Adventure taught us that Chow can't swim, yet they're all over the water here. That's crazy, that's where they go when you mess around and put them in the pool in the Chow Garden, they end up here. Drawn to Life can realistically be the dumbest game you want it to be, and I couldn't appreciate that more. Drawn to Life is good, but it is very much a what you see is what you get kind of game, you know? But hey, at the end of the day, 2 good SpongeBob games back to back. That's really cool. I didn't think that was gonna happen here, but I really just hope we can keep this train going. So what's next? It's a cooking game. SpongeBob versus the big one, Beach Party Cook-Off. Rolls right off the tongue. I will say this much, aside from Drawn to Life, this is the only game in the franchise to be a DS exclusive, so yay! By this point in the series timeline, I no longer was watching the show, but I guess there was an episode where this absolute hunk of a fish voiced by Johnny Depp showed up, and it was a big deal, I guess? Certainly how the game makes it sound, Jack Kahuna Laguna is in town hosting a beach party, and he demands there be a contest to decide who will cook for it. Well, SpongeBob likes to cook. Let's go! immediately after starting this game up, this interface is really bothering me, honestly. All these cutscenes look like they're from an old PC game from the early 2000s. It looks like a Flash game here. These guys should have had a decent budget, right? Use it. Taking one look at the box art, the expectations are set up pretty clearly. This was gonna be a Cooking Mama clone, right? There's a bunch of cooking games on the DS with Mama as the character. SpongeBob likes to cook. This is a perfect combo. And wouldn't you know it, it is like that. Oh, I am so tired. Things are slightly more complex since you have like a little freedom in when you get to perform the tasks, and rather than simply finishing when you make an item and give it to a customer, you just keep going until you satisfy a set number of customers. In that way, it's almost like a restaurant manager like Diner Dash. I didn't think they could make the Cooking Mama and or Diner Dash format feel a lot more tedious than they already do, but major congrats to Beach Party Cook-Off. They achieved it. And also, there's not a single holographic meatloaf in sight. Terrible. Obvious fan service. You could have had that one for free. You know what would have been a really good idea for this? They should have used SpongeBob's mother for this one, trying to teach a young SpongeBob how to cook. That way we could have a legit Cooking Mama crossover the same way we have a drawn to life one, but whatever. You know, I won't be mad about it. I'll just stop writing these perfect fanfictions now. Next up, we have Truther Square DS. Okay, now Here is where the real money is. So, a quick refresher course on this one as well. I wasn't huge on the console version. It was developed by the Battle for Bikini Bottom devs, so that's cool, but it was easily their weakest work with the property. Although, every version of the game also has a different yet equally creepy zoom in on SpongeBob's face as the box art, so you know, that's something. However, with the DS version, we have another 3D platformer, and it's actually pretty good too. Oh my god, that's crazy. Had to jump back to the opening credits for this one now to see. Okay, Altron. Can't say this is a studio that I've really heard of much before, but per their Wikipedia, they're responsible for just a ton of licensed games, but more importantly, Atlantis Squarepantis DS, Truther Square DS, and Drawn to Life SpongeBob Edition. Oh, Criminy Jim, we did it! We found the good games here. WayForward may have had the most interesting trilogy on the GBA, but I think Altron are the ones that provided the most interesting trilogy on the DS. This is really exciting. So essentially, Truther Square on the DS is a more refined version of Atlantis Squarepantis. It controls a bit better, it looks a bit better, the exploration is a bit more rewarding, the team-up mechanic is totally gone, making progression a lot more seamless. You can still become a big shot after getting happy enough. By God, this may be the definitive Truther Square experience. There is some touchscreen and even microphone mechanics here or there, and that stuff isn't all that great, but man, this was overall a genuinely enjoyable game, and one of my favorites in the entire SpongeBob franchise. Didn't see that coming. The entire concept of going through SpongeBob's memories is still not all that fleshed out, since it never really feels like you're reliving the moments from the show. But unlike the console versions, the levels here actually do end with segments that make sense. You got jellyfishing, the fry cook games where you go one-on-one against Patrick, the talent show where Squidward tries to be a big deal but SpongeBob the janitor is getting a whole lot more applause. That's here too. Damn it, I actually really love this. That is all I wanted with Truther Square, man, the accuracy. You know, at least I don't really remember the giant submarine robot trying to actively kill SpongeBob with these giant spiky side wheels, but hey, like I said before, I fell off the show for a while. Maybe robots trying to murder our heroes actually was the theme of an episode. I don't know. I'm way out of touch. And yes, we even have the Jiggle Me Handles line too. Perfect. And all this praise I have for random SpongeBob games is all fine and good, but you know what that means. Being that this is the end of the Altron trilogy, and we still have 3 games to go. Oh, but don't you worry. If you thought the rest of this episode was gonna be all happy and cheery until the end credits roll, no, absolutely not. Boating Bash on the DS. I'm so tired. So the Wii version of Boating Bash was honestly kind of okay. A car destruction game fits SpongeBob a whole lot more than a traditional racing game would, and the developers did a pretty decent job getting a fun time out of it. But if you were wondering if it were possible that cumbersome touch controls for a racing game on the DS would make the game incredibly unfun, then good job, you nailed it. All you do is hold on the touchscreen in the direction the road is, maybe bump into another driver if told to do so, and I mean, I guess this is the only way to get it done since it's not a traditional racer like Mario Kart, but this game also didn't need to exist in the first place. We're back in licensed game hell. Surf and Skate Road Trip. Alright, this one is a little bit more interesting. This does have a console version, but yes, as you can see, it is exclusive to the Xbox 360. Oh, on top of that, it's also a Kinect game. That's a double negative right there. Hey, with that knowledge, I don't even need to play the game to know it's not fun. This one was obvious. Well, last time I checked, you can't hook up a Kinect to a DS, so we're golden now. Oh, no, your eyes aren't deceiving you. This is the game's actual frame rate. This is one of the choppiest games I've ever played. Oh my god, how did this get past quality assurance? And since we got all these trick challenges for all of these board-based events, the game has the audacity, the gall, the barnacles to ask you to be precise with this? Does it even matter if the game is fun? I mean, of course not, because the game is terrible, but I'm just saying, would it even matter? Oh, but at least the DS version has additional snowboarding gameplay included. I take it back, clearly the game is good. Last up, the final SpongeBob game to, quote, grace the DS, Plankton's Robotic Revenge. Oh god, we're really here again, aren't we? Well, this isn't the first time I've played this game. I did play the only SpongeBob game to release on the Wii U a while back, and yeah, I absolutely hated it. Just this repetitive and tedious top-down shooter. It was one of the most boring games I've ever played. And regarding somehow squeezing that entire experience to the DS, oh yeah, man, this is going to be good. Oh wow. Oh yeah, man. Oh dude, what? Oh whoa, this is crazy, man. Yeah. This is horrendous. Loving the SpongeBob model, by the way. This is basically what my brain is reduced to at this point. You know what? Like I said with the previous games, I guess this is the best you can expect for a DS version of Robotic Revenge, which at the time was a next-gen type game, but did they really need to waste resources on this in the first place? They released this on the 3DS at the same exact time. I don't know, maybe the higher production values of the 3DS version provide a better experience? Wait, I hate this game. Why did I buy it 3 times? Considering the DS is more powerful than the Game Boy Advance, it's at least notable how much more variety there is to be found here, so that's interesting. But 3 good games in a sea of 9. The 3 games on 3DS aren't all that good either. It is really telling that the further along the SpongeBob video game timeline we got, outside of a few special circumstances, I won't deny that, things just got worse and worse and worse, and we ended with total rock bottom. Praise be to WayForward and Altron. If not for you guys, the franchise would be batting a damn near 0. This entire retrospective really makes the release of Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated and the announcement of the upcoming platformer, the Cosmic Shake, all the more impactful. There is good to be pulled from this franchise, but a lot of companies have no idea how to get it done, and we got to see it firsthand. Hey, did you also know that they released Rehydrated on mobile devices? Man, that's weird, isn't it? You could argue that after the original Battle for Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob SquarePants video games weren't bad, they were just simply misunderstood. It would be a dumb argument to make, but hey, you can still make it. Of course these games are bad. But now, you know what time it is. It's time for the SpongeBob DS tier list. Let's go. Of course, at the very top we have Truth or Square, then Atlantis Squarepantis, and then Drawn to Life. Altron, that trilogy, you guys did really good. Awesome stuff. After that, God, just like the rest of them, honestly, they were all really, really rough. And then put Surf and Skate Road Trip and Robotic Revenge right at the very bottom in the trash bin where they belong. God, what were they thinking? Well, surely there has to be some hacks specifically for the DS game, right? There's already so much you can do with the 64 game. Why would anybody even bother with the DS game? Well, I am happy to report that while it is not as robust and vibrant as what the 64 game has to offer, Super Mario 64 DS, hackers have done some pretty cool things with it. You probably saw in the thumbnail of the video that there's an Among Us crewmate there, just nice and just front and center. We're gonna go on a journey today. For those out there not totally kept in the loop here, no, Super Mario 64 DS is not just the original game dropped onto a handheld, though that is currently an option thanks to all of the decompilation that happened a few years back. One of the beautiful things about the N64 game was you just got dropped in as Mario, and outside of star requirements, you very quickly had freedom to do whatever you wanted. In the DS version, well, now we have extra characters to consider, starting with Yoshi and unlocking everyone else throughout. Some missions are locked behind specific characters and their abilities, and obviously on a technical front, concessions had to be made for both the art style thanks to the lower resolution, and control thanks to the lack of analog stick. Nintendo really showed off their first true 3D handheld console by porting a game where the original selling point at the time was its analog control onto a device that didn't have an analog stick. This company's great. I love Super Mario 64 DS. Strictly speaking on content, I think it's superior to the original. It's just not the most ideal way to play in terms of overall comfort. A three-dimensional game with the D-pad and you have a run button and it's just, it's gross. Which gives me great pleasure to say that due to relatively basic emulator options, we can get what is, in my eyes, the definitive way to play this game. For many out there, sure, there is an inherent charm to how 3D games looked and played on the DS. You get sort of a PS1 styled aesthetic going on here, with these wide open 3D areas with the chonkiest pixels you ever did see, and I am a fan of it. But man, as easy as flipping a switch, you can now up the resolution, making it so you can actually see what all these art assets were supposed to look like the entire time, and you can even run it in widescreen. It is surreal to see that this is the same game. And realistically, it's not like there's a ton of noteworthy 3D games on the DS, and it is so cool to see what's possible with just a little bit of extra horsepower and the proper patch. This whole widescreen DS game thing has even been extended to a few other games too. We got Mario Kart DS, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, and even Pokemon Black and White. Just the overworld stuff seems to work, the battles not so much, but still, it's super cool. But I gotta tell you, nothing tops the fact that there is also an analog mod for this game too, giving this game the proper analog stick support it always needed. You tilt the stick a little bit and then they walk, and then you full tilt and then they go. You don't need a run button, it's glorious. It's a little more complicated to set up than a traditional hack, I will admit, but once it's there, it is really hard to go back. This is perfect. Just wiggling back and forth as Yoshi with ease, it is a dream. God, remember when the base game had this weird touchscreen mode to replicate analog controls and the original DS came with this weird thumb nub to use on the screen? 2004 was an unholy time. But alright, fine, you want to see the new stuff, right? Can't blame you. There's no better place to jump in than with the earliest complete hack for this game, another Super Mario 3D. Released all the way back in 2014, brought to us by Scowo, one of the prominent members behind Newer Team, the developers behind newer Super Mario Bros. Yeah, we got quite a bit of a pedigree here. You would probably assume that with knowledge like that, similar to Newer, another was gonna be a pretty damn impressive retooling of the original game. And yep, we are immediately dropped into a new and kinda demonic hub world that actually lets you explore around the castle. That's a nice change of pace, and once you're inside, all of the interior is new too. The layouts are completely different, the music is a bit more menacing, and within the castle walls we have 7 brand new full levels to explore, as well as 10 smaller levels that only have a few missions each. In total, there are 73 stars to collect. This is a fully complete game, and honestly, this was a blast. Everything is pretty compact here. All of the levels work with familiar tropes, but the designs are all new and really not all that big. Getting in and out of stages goes by really quickly, and I actually like that a lot. Nothing here feels bloated, but it all still feels original. This hack also shows some of the possibilities that the DS provides that you can't get out of the base 64 game. Like having the map on the touchscreen. It really helps with the game's pacing since you never have to wonder where to go next. You can dive into a level you've never been to before and get in and out with no problem. Yoshi plays a critical role in the early missions, that's to be expected, and then you have some items like the Mega Mushroom showing up, as well as the big, thick Mario for specific missions. Really glad this decided to come back, I'm a big fan. This is all stuff that could work in the N64 game if given some tweaks, but making this a DS mod feels super deliberate. And that is important, because that's not something I could say for some of the other hacks I've got today. This may be an oldie, but it's definitely a goodie. Highly recommend this one. And then, that was it for a while actually. Another Super Mario 3D released in 2014. A bulk of the other hacks that we're going to talk about today released in 2018 and beyond. A couple of small hacks did release here or there. In the meantime, it is kind of hard to get a full timeline going here of the history. But really, after 2014, there was nothing substantial. We had a full-blown hack all the way back then, and then for a few years the other hackers were like, nah, I'm good. I've had enough. Though around this time we did get another hack. We did get Butterfly DS, which for you astute historians out there, it is in fact a sequel to the N64 ROM hack, Butterfly 64. All by the same guy. That's it. That's the whole thing. This hacker has too much power. Much like some of the other franchises I've discussed in the past, most of the ambition here comes in the form of adventures that are currently unfinished. Like here, for example, Super Mario 256. In my opinion, the top current hack in terms of modifying the original game with new ideas. Structurally, we are charting familiar territory, but before long, new mechanics start to bombard you. You got the flipping panels from Galaxy, those are here. Quite frankly, there's also a lot of Galaxy influence sprinkled throughout, and you are not going to see me complain about that. I am all for that. Do you want to change between any character on the fly, including Peach and Toad? Well, you can do that, of course you can. All of the stages now have these fancy star selection screens, opening cutscenes, new music, collectible star coins, new power-ups like the cloud suit from Galaxy 2, or even turning into one of the Tox boxes. That was unexpected. That's really, really awesome. There are enemies that are showing up from all over the Mario universe, and sometimes there are more drastic changes between individual missions, like suddenly the world getting dark after it was nice and sunny in the previous mission, and in this example, you get led up to the top of this mountain to take down an evil Magic Koopa, a boss fight that was not in the original game. This is all wildly impressive. I will say though that sometimes it is a bit too ambitious for its own good. The camera clearly needs a lot of work for some of these areas to ease on the frustrations. Some of these areas are just a little bit too tight. But in general, man, I am loving what I'm seeing here. I cannot believe this is possible in that engine. A New Beginning is another impressive feat brought to us by the same hacker that gave us Mario Kart DS Deluxe, which, if you remember, I love that one too. First thing, we get dropped off in Toad Town from Mario Galaxy with the observatory theme playing in the background. Oh man. Now, in terms of mechanics, there is nothing as revolutionary as 256 here. Instead, things were developed to better suit the restrictions of the console. Locations are a lot bigger in scope, avoiding the narrow hallways almost entirely, leading to a camera that is barely ever an issue. Thank goodness. This is all simply showing off a lot of potential in an adventure that gives us a brand new castle, filled with brand new secrets, and levels that use brand new theming rather than reusing other assets. There is so much unfinished with the build that I played, but damn it, there is a slide section on an F-Zero track with pictures of Mario from the 1993 Mario movie, and you will not hear me complaining about this, no siree whatsoever. This is great. After that, well, we start diving more and more into the unfinished hacks that have very, very little to work with in regards to what's currently playable. But again, they have promising futures. Super Mario Journey Lane got this one sizable lakeside level where collecting the stars does not kick you out to the hub world. That's pretty cool. And then I also found a newer build of this one with essentially a recreation of Luigi's mansion, filled with a bunch of new obstacles and a familiar environment. That's really neat. Getting to run through the mansion as a more traditional platformer is such a fascinating concept. I'm surprised it took this long for me to play something that gave that a shot. What is currently available is pretty fun, but thanks to a recent trailer for the hack, clearly the scope of this one is just getting bigger and bigger and a whole lot more varied, so this is definitely one to keep your eyes on. It seems like, similar to the last hack, there's going to be nothing new in terms of mechanics, but man, I just love the idea of getting new adventures with existing concepts like this. Some of these stages look great. Bro, and the story apparently starts with Mario escaping prison. Finally, the sequel to Mario Sunshine we've always wanted. Next up, we have Mario's Holiday, following the same trend of giving us a new hub worlds to run through, and the music is from Bomberman 64. So, you win easy points just by acknowledging that game's existence. Thank you so much. And also, the game has auto run enabled, so you no longer need a run button. It's pretty disorienting to get used to, I'm not gonna lie. There's only 2 levels in this one, there's a carnival and a cruiser ship, and this one also doesn't kick you out of the level after getting a star. Oh, thank God. If this is a new standard going forward for these hacks, then sign me up. It seems like such a minor thing in the grand scheme of things, but I love that gameplay loop way more. I'm not entirely sure what the whole holiday name is all about. Maybe it's because the levels are based off of holiday vacation ideas, you know, going to a colorful fair or going on a cruise. Makes sense to me. You can make like a water stage based off of Splash Mountain. That would be kind of cool. For Super Mario Star Quest, I had similar expectations, but oh boy, this hub world does not really give me much promise. So by explicit definition, this is a Super Mario 64 styled adventure. You jump into levels, they have stars, and you get them. This is like the smallest game I've ever seen in my life. a grass area, an ice area, a desert area, and a lava area with the tiniest levels I've ever seen in my entire life, with missions that take like 30 seconds to complete. Honestly, the fact that the creator fit multiple missions into areas that are 2 square feet big, that's the most impressive part. This is such an odd star quest. I'm assuming this is probably the first hack the creator made because it clearly shows, but if it's not the first hack, well, I'm sorry about that. That's just how it feels. On the bright side though, there is a sequel, Mario's Trip. It's just like a singular level, but I mean, hey, things look a little more interesting here. An upgrade is an upgrade. Nicely done. But then on the brightest of bright sides, the creator finally took off the creative handcuffs and decided to go all out. Soon after Star Quest, we got OK 64. Like, based off of some Discord emote, I guess. I can't really find any proof that that's actually a thing, but damn it, I'm intrigued. We got levels that are slightly larger in size and a little more varied. There's a boss fight. You can inflate finally. I've been missing that one for a while. That's still terrifying looking, but hey, it's cool that it's here now. Every character looks really scary now too. Man, I'm just so tired. There's multiple games in this little sub-series too. They're not the longest hacks in the world, but the fact that there's like a continuity going on here, did not see that coming. There are more OK 64 DS games than there are Star Tropics games. What a disgusting world we live in. I love the potential of this next one's idea, a recreation of 64DS's beta, back when it was called 64x4. God, you see, I always thought that name was a whole lot more clever than 64DS, but fine, the final name is a little more corporate, I guess. Who wants fun, anyway? If you ever watched any of the old footage of that beta, you could see that there are a lot of small things that were different than the final game, like being able to explore around the entire castle, more beta-looking textures here or there, a different-looking star. You know, there's not much to it. It's not like there was a whole lot known about 64x4 anyway, judging by the few screenshots that still exist, but quite frankly, any effort to bring life into a game's beta elements, I am all for that. Oh boy, look at that original prototype fat DS, man. Oh my god, orange on silver. I'm surprised Nintendo's even still in business after this one. As many of you know, over the history of Nintendo handhelds, the company would regularly port and enhance mainline Mario games with a bunch of new stuff, from Super Mario Bros. Deluxe on the Game Boy Color to Super Mario 64 DS on the DS. I remember at the time it being speculated that, oh well, next in line is Sunshine, I guess that's gonna come to the 3DS. Obviously that didn't happen, so what if the Flood from that game was ported to 64DS instead? Huh? Look at this. This is so damn neat. Somehow, and I have to emphasize, because I have no idea how, but somehow, the Flood, specifically the hover nozzle, has not only been ported to the game's engine, but there are even some levels inspired from, if not directly pulled, from Sunshine. How? This is witchcraft. As far as what Super Mario Sunshine DS still has to offer, there is a lot of work that still needs to be done here, but it is still clearly possible to get a lot of that game's DNA here on the DS. Oh hey, look at that, the sandbird. Everyone's favorite mission. I never want to see the words sand and bird next to each other ever again as long as I live. In terms of Super Mario 64 DS ROM hacks that are playable, well, that is basically it at the moment. Again, great futures for most of these, but like I mentioned at the start of the video, the hacking scene here is not as robust as the 64 version, but we still got some cool stuff to check out. And of course, at the very, very least, you should have come to expect this. We have some extra playable characters too. Yes, of course, basic character model swaps. You would be foolish to not expect these. You can race against Koopa the Quick as Sonic, you get to defeat Bowser as Waluigi, and finally get a kiss from the princess at the end. He's been in side games his entire life, he deserves this. You can harness the power of animal buddies as Donkey Kong. Just the cutest chibi Donkey Kong I ever did see. Ooh, we got Polygon Mario too, I like this a whole lot. Running around these worlds with this much chunkier Mario, it makes all the sense in the world to me. This is very pleasing on the eyes. There's also this one hack that brings Deku Link in as a replacement for Yoshi's Mario transformation. Rather than picking up Mario's hat, you pick up the mask and then, you don't have Yoshi screaming like Link did in Majora's Mask, but, otherwise the same concept. And this hack that you find the power-up in even recreates the very beginning of that game. This is very small in scope currently. I have no idea if there are plans to flesh this out, but for what it is, it's pretty cool. And eventually, if you do keep playing and you die, you will spawn back in the original game, except then, instead of Goombas, you got Deku Scrubs instead. This is one step closer to the proper Nintendo crossover adventure that we've all been needing. The last time this happened was, I don't know, the Nintendo cereal back in the day. There you go, Mario and Zelda in the same thing. Oh, that's neat. And whew, oh boy, okay, I almost forgot about this one, but on the topic of Donkey Kong, I did kinda lie. Here we have one more playable hack, a little recreation of Donkey Kong Jungle Climber, eh? Remember that game? Yeah, of course you don't. Oh my god, this Donkey Kong. God, this is so cursed. So this overworld map is a 3D recreation of the first overworld map from the source game, and that's kind of cool, but when you get into the levels here, oh my god, we got a full-on side-scrolling stage with major Donkey Kong Country Returns vibes. That's awesome. There's even these barrels that shoot us into the background, and this layout is from that one stage in Super Smash Bros. Oh wow, I am loving this way more than I thought I was going to. Oh dude, the Shadow stage is here too? This is wild. Oh my god, and Xananab is here as well! Wow, my favorite character. Man, Jungle Climber was weird. It's a shame nobody played it. And arguably the best part of all, we get DK's butt exposed to us for the entire game. Thank God. And then we finally reach the land of untapped potential and promises via screenshots and/or trailers. Super Mario Star World, an incredibly ambitious hack with, as far as I can tell, no playable build just yet, but it's been in development for years, and it shows. Aesthetics, general level design, even the controls look super crisp. Very excited for that one. New stars, modifying the existing levels with brand new obstacles, missions, and the inclusion of the hover nozzle. This one's looking kinda cool as well. Shroom Valley looks like it's gonna be taking the typical Mario formula and kind of throwing it into a bit of a grittier world. That's a unique take, I like that. Apparently at one point, Banjo-Kazooie's levels were being ported as well, but they were scrapped due to console limitations, and that makes sense. But I even found a whole Minecraft world too. I didn't realize I wanted something like this until I saw it, and now I would love to see a whole lot more of this. Just the idea of a Minecraft platformer is oddly appealing to me. I'm not gonna lie, I'm liking this a whole lot. Okay, and dude, okay, I don't have any idea how this part is possible. I didn't know how the hover nozzle was gonna be ported in, that's fine, whatever. But here, Galaxy is somehow being ported to the DS as well. Honestly, by looking at the footage, I can't really tell if this is a 64 DS ROM hack or some kind of pure homebrew, but I couldn't not talk about this. Galaxy is currently being ported to the Nintendo DS. What? This is crazy, man. I remember watching this, like, cursed CG concept video for a Galaxy DS port over a decade ago, fantasizing how cool it would be in real life to play on this really relatively weak hardware, and my god, we may actually be getting close to that being a reality. This is all very exciting stuff. Mark my words here, the original Super Mario 64 is going to be one of the most exciting hacking scenes that we've ever seen in the years ahead. There is no doubt in my mind, but Super Mario 64 DS specifically, well, I think I made it pretty clear today that the hackers are really taking advantage of what that version has to offer with its little differences. We do have a lot of works in progress. It is gonna take a while to see what we can truly get out of that engine, but I gotta tell you, man, I'm really looking forward to it. Well, we're here now. All right, so okay, here we are. We are one of the crewmates playing a good old-fashioned game of Amogus. Much like the main inspiration, we start off on our ship, we get to talk to our fellow crewmates, and then you make landing in the Skeld, one of the source game's original maps. And what do you do on said map? Well, tasks, of course. You run around this shockingly accurate recreation of that map, interact with some of the other players who are trying to get their tasks done and just see if anyone is being sus. And in the meantime, just get your job done while also being terrified of going into electrical. And I will be 100% honest here, the more I played, the more I was surprised. I didn't expect much with this one. You do start off just collecting a few items and that's kind of it, but soon you unlock this teleporter and then you do like a tiny minigame mimicking the asteroid task of that original map. You properly aim your shot and you go for the star. That's actually kind of neat. I didn't think I was gonna like this, but here I am. Oh no, emergency meeting time. Evil plants have started to fill up the ship, and you know that's no good. It's a shame I'm the only one doing my tasks here. Guess I'll cover this too. Red sus, TBH. Listen here, you little... Ah, damn it, cyan's down. Same with purple. We got a problem on our hands here, and I can't report it for some reason. All right, green, you evil imposter, you're going down. Oh my god, it's the big evil hands, but with the eyeballs, so they look like big Among Us crewmates. This is... Why is this so creative? And with that, we have defeated green and we have saved the day, and that is the end of the current hack. It is a very short adventure, and I gotta say, that's kind of a shame. I would love to see the remaining maps from Among Us implemented here as well. This was actually really good. What the hell? Well, I've done it. I've talked about Among Us on the channel. I get to finally write that off the list. I'm gonna go self-vote myself off the ship now. And that's that. Goodbye, everyone.